legend.
So my first season of Power Rangers was Power Rangers Samurai when it first debuted on Nickelodeon.
Oh, I'm one of the old school fans. I started watching Power Rangers from the beginning. I was 11 years old at the time, and I had just moved to a new state, so I was kind of like the new kid in town, much like Tommy was in Green with Evil.
I started watching Power Rangers really from the beginning. I can't say like exactly day one, but pretty much around the first season, and I've been watching since then. I was 3.5 years old when the show started.
Started watching Power Rangers with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Season 1 because I was a kid on the playground, and all of a sudden all the boys were like, we're playing Power Rangers. I'm like, what in the world is Power Rangers? They're like, it was this amazing show. You have to watch it today. It'll be on after school.
It was great because I made so many friends, being a new kid in school because of Power Rangers, because everyone was talking about, like, Green with Evil. But, I mean, my first episode was Day of the Dumpster. I was there from day one.
So I started watching Power Rangers from what my mom told me. I started watching Power Rangers back in 1993.
I started watching Power Rangers back in 2005 when it was on ABC Family. My first season was Power Rangers SPD, and that's also my favorite season. But ever since then, I just grown to love this show.
Tricky question. When did I start watching Power Rangers? Because Power Rangers came a year after I was born, and I feel like it's been in my life ever since the beginning. Like, I can always remember, like, Mighty Morphin reruns. I had the VHS tapes growing up. But the season that I think I actually sat down and watched beginning to end was probably Time Force. Coming right off the really hot McDonald's toys from Lightspeed Rescue. I was like, all right, I got to get in on this. And then Time Force was starting up. So
I do remember owning a white Tigerzord for one time during when I was younger. So I want to say my first season was Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. So that's when I started back in 93.
So I think Power Rangers as a kid, I'm sure it was probably the flashy visuals, the colored, superheroes that really like stood out in the action and everything.
As a kid, I just loved like colors. I was a big fan of the Wiggles. So I feel like transferring from the Wiggles to the Power Rangers are just like a part of maturing.
So I enjoyed the action, I enjoyed the special effects.
The suit designs, and of course, like the Megazords.
And also the toys. My dad is a huge toy collector, and he kind of got me into the toy collecting game when I was a kid.
But today I think it's more of just the toy lines and still the suit designs and everything like that, and kind of also just how all the seasons have been able to loosely connect to each other for nearly 30 years. I think is just such a really cool aspect to it.
The fighting style, I mean, I just really like spandex suits fighting rubber-suited monsters. I think it's a lot of fun. As a kid, I just liked a lot of the action, but I liked that even as an adult, it's this comfort of good over evil. At the end of the day, the Rangers are going to win, and it's a nice comfort feeling.
I love pretty much the suits. I love the action. I'm always a love of like transformations as well. So seeing one being become another being has always been something that caught my eye as a child.
It was that kind of grand superhero, like, live action storytelling. Like, back in 1993, we didn't have these big superhero franchises like we do today with the MCU and DC and all of that.
It felt different than anything else that I saw on TV at the time.
But I think what really stuck with me as a kid, I remember really connecting to a lot of the characters and the elements that they would promote of, teamwork and collaboration, and just the fact that the show was also very diverse as well. All these things really stuck with me over the years, and even as an adult now, are what I appreciate about the show is its diversity, the positive messages that it has.
I think the biggest appeal to the show is just the inclusivity that it has to people of different walks, people of different backgrounds, just the idea that anybody can be a hero, anybody can come together, anybody can do the right thing, and this show really kind of shows you week to week, all these different ways that you can kind of stand up and be a hero, even if it's like something as small as just, like stopping something on the playground. That has a big impact on kids, and I think a lot of those lessons lead to better, harder working adults as they grow up.
But ultimately, at its core, I think what's helped the show through the generations, and beyond, hopefully, is those timeless messages that it promotes.
Let me take you back to the summer of 2012. We were right in the middle of Power Rangers Super Samurai's summer break, and you hear that the Power Rangers fan convention, Power Morphicon, is going on right now. You also hear that they're going to be having a trailer for the newest season coming out, the 20th anniversary season. Now, first, you think it's just going to be a standard season announcement? They're going to show off what Sentai they're going to be adapting, what kind of gear they're going to have, etc. Then, they show something that is going to change the foundation of the franchise. And honestly, it's something the franchise may still have never recovered from. They showed the legendary battle from Gokaiger, the 35th anniversary season of Super Sentai. And the fans lost their minds. Saban now had an obligation to their fans to meet the standards they had now set for themselves, and they were on a time limit. This promise needed to be fulfilled, and they only had 2 years to do it. The reason I showed you guys this trailer before getting into the show itself is I wanted you guys to get an idea of where the show was at the time that it was announced. Yeah, while Power Rangers is primarily a show for kids, it can be enjoyed by people of all ages, regardless of being caught up with fan service and continuity and all of that other baggage for it. But the problem is, this is the way that Power Rangers is being advertised. This was Megaforce, and we had a lot of questions that we weren't sure if we were going to get the answers for. How are they going to be using this legendary battle footage? Are we getting the Gokaiger suits? But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let me give you guys a little bit of background information for those who may not have caught up with everything or might not have even watched Power Rangers since the 90s. The TV landscape in the late 80s and early 90s was dominated by action juggernauts like Transformers, G.I. Joe, Captain Planet, I guess, and of course, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. And the hottest movie of 1993 was a little film called Jurassic Park. Now, what would happen if you took all of these ideas and mixed them into one show? It cannot be overstated how huge the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers were in their day. What was once a concept that got you laughed out of the office if you suggested it was now the hottest kids show imaginable, and everyone wanted a piece of the pie. But what was it about Power Rangers that made it so distinct in the first place? Power Rangers was about 5 teenagers with attitude: Jason, Zach, Billy, Trini, and Kimberly. Recruited by a space wizard named Zordon and his robot buddy Alpha 5, they would fight against Rita Repulsa and her evil space monsters, and use their powers to defend the city. In order to do this, they were given special devices called Power Morphers, which would allow them to transform into the color-coded team we know today. Now, it should be no secret that Power Rangers gets its fight footage from a Japanese show called Super Sentai. Specifically, this season was adapted from the 16th iteration of the franchise, Kyoryu Sentai Zyuranger. This wasn't the first attempt to bring Super Sentai to the US, as they've been trying for over a decade to find a way to bring the show stateside. Now, there's a lot to say about that particular subject, so maybe we'll come back to that later. Getting back to Power Rangers, they would take the Japanese Sentai footage and then combine it with brand new American shot footage of the teens going to school, going to the juice bar, wherever, and then combine the two to make one cohesive storyline. So you've got Voltron meets Saved by the Bell, or to put it in more modern terms, Voltron meets Saved by the Bell. And this created an instantly successful formula. The Power Rangers were a hit, and soon they would be joined by a face that would go on to define the franchise. Tommy Oliver, the Green Ranger, changed the game. If the original 5 Rangers got the show on the map, then Tommy made sure the show stayed on the map. To speed things up a little, Mighty Morphin would go on for 3 seasons and get a feature film, and they would eventually see most of the cast cycled out for new characters. Tommy would go from green to white, and we will get 2 new seasons worth of Zords, adapting the 17th Super Sentai season Dai Ranger and the 18th Super Sentai season Kaku Ranger. It ballooned the show from originally being only 40 episodes all the way up to 145 episodes, as well as a 10-episode mini-series called The Alien Rangers, which would transition the show from one status quo to another, and allowed them to utilize footage from Kaku Ranger for the aforementioned Alien Rangers. In 1996, we would say goodbye to the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. At least for now. Because Power Ranger Zeo was here. Power Ranger Zeo was the first time the costumes changed for the main cast, this time to be the 19th Super Sentai season, Old Ranger. But the Rangers themselves continued onward for Mighty Morphin, and brought the ratings back up from a bit of a slump after the movie. It was a back-to-basics kind of season, and honestly all the better for it. They even got a second movie out of the deal, Turbo, a Power Rangers movie, which introduced new costumes, this time based on the 20th Super Sentai season Car Ranger, introduced a divisive new Ranger, Justin, and this film actually was canon to the TV show, unlike the first movie. Power Rangers ratings were hitting an all-time low during Turbo, even being beat out by other Power Rangers adjacent shows like Big Bad Beetleborgs in terms of ratings, and the show was on the verge of cancellation. Halfway through Turbo, everyone except Justin was swapped out for new teenagers with even more attitude. This did improve things, at least enough to get one more season. Power Rangers in Space would be the culmination of the past 6 years of the franchise, and would try to conclude the story by having the Rangers, led by the new character Andros, venture out into space to rescue their leader Zordon. With the past seasons, they were far more episodic in nature. Stories had simple morals, and plots resolved at the end of the episode. In Space provided a slightly older tone, as it was now growing with its audience who had been around since '93. This helped blast the ratings through the roof, and took a season that was meant to be the finale of the franchise into becoming the standard for how to make a season of Power Rangers. The Rangers not only saved the entire galaxy, they also saved the franchise. Going into the next season, Lost Galaxy, the show was given a much bigger budget, in part by Saban cutting the Power Rangers adjacent shows I mentioned, such as Beetleborgs, along with VR Troopers and a completely original show called Mystic Knights of Tir Na Nog. And for those who are worried I forgot to mention Saban's Masked Rider, don't worry, I didn't forget. It got cancelled 2 years before this. From this point onward, each season of Power Rangers would be its own unique season with its own separate cast. 1 year, 1 Sentai. And that's how things would continue for the foreseeable future.
One of my top favorites is Time Force. It's a season that had some great characters, really interesting storylines, and it's just stuck with me. Power Rangers SPD is a huge favorite of mine, just because it has one of my favorite designed Power Rangers, which is Shadow Ranger. I love Shadow Ranger. I think it's an amazing design, but it's not just because it's like a cool sci-fi Power Ranger story. It's also because that was my brother's first Power Ranger series, and he was at the same age I was when I discovered Power Rangers. So, bit of an age gap between us, but we bonded more when he was getting into Power Rangers with SPD.
So my favorite season would be SPD, but also I need to give a shout out to RPM. That's a very close second for me.
Power Rangers RPM, get in gear.
What I really enjoyed about SPD was just like its futuristic setting and just, the aesthetic, the props that it used. It really made me feel like I was in a completely different world, and for those exact same reasons is why I really like RPM too, like for that apocalyptic nature and that feeling of just death and surrounding, but there's still somehow a team of Power Rangers within it all.
The whole Dr. K thing, Corinth with the bubble, it was well written. I love the action in it. I love just the actors and stuff. It was just a superb show.
Favorite season, Ninja Storm, let's get it. Oh my god. So when it comes to Ninja Storm, I feel that there was a certain element of having just a core team of 3, like with 2 extra heroes that would come in later who were actually villains when it started. Like that dynamic alone, when they were advertising it and kind of showcasing it and getting it underway, I was like, this is different than anything I've ever seen. And I think you can ask anybody across the board, and they will have one Power Ranger that they look up to, that they see themselves the most in. And for me, that was Dustin the Yellow Ranger. And just to have a guy be a Yellow Ranger was like groundbreaking for me. You know, I was like, oh my God, you could be literally any color. Like you could like see that grow up and want to be like the first male Pink Ranger because like you have Dustin now who is yellow. Like it was, shook my world.
So my favorite season of Power Rangers is Dino Thunder.
Favorite season of Power Rangers would have to be Dino Thunder.
It has pretty much my favorite version of Tommy. It has my favorite Blue Ranger. I love the Megazords. I love the story. And it pretty much felt like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but a better version of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
I love the storyline that Dino Thunder has. I love how it connects back to Mighty Morphin with bringing Tommy back and everything in a way that feels like natural, and having him be part of the main cast I think is just really, really cool. And I think it's kind of one of the first of its time to do something like that. You kind of see things like that today where like legacy characters will come back to franchises, maybe as main cast or some bigger role. But I think Dino Thunder was kind of one of the first of its kind to do that nearly 20 years ago at this point. And so I've seen that season in full now so many times. And so I always go back to Dino Thunder whenever I just want the good old Power Rangers episode to watch.
So I want to take a quick break from the history portion of this essay, and I want to talk to you guys a little bit about my history with the franchise, my history with the Power Rangers, if you will. Now, I was born in 1995, so I technically could have missed out on Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, but I had the VHSs as a kid. I had a bunch of these ones. This is Day of the Dumpster right here. So I got to see Power Rangers as a kid. I got to see quite a bit of Mighty Morphin. I also had the movie on VHS. And then I can distinctly remember that the first season that I watched on TV was Power Rangers in Space. Now, I might have seen like an episode or two of Turbo. I think I watched Chase into Space on TV, probably because they were premiering it to set up for In Space's debut. But I know I watched all of Power Rangers in Space. And then I watched Lost Galaxy as well, which I didn't really have a whole lot for. I think I had a puzzle and like a little keychain I got at a Pizza Hut or something. But for me, a very nostalgic one for me is Power Rangers Lightspeed Rescue. I had a bunch of the VHSs. I had a lot of the toys. I had the video games. I had really Lightspeed Rescue is the one where I had the most merchandise as a kid, even more than I had for Mighty Morphin. So that one's a really strong nostalgia point for me. And then I watched Time Force as well, another big nostalgia one. Didn't have as many toys, but I still had quite a few of the games. And then Wild Force was the last season that I wound up watching as a kid. It was 2002. I guess at the ripe age of 7, I decided that I was outgrown for Power Rangers, or maybe it had something to do with them changing networks. I'm not really sure. Either way, I stopped watching Power Rangers at that age. But the franchise kept going. It kept going on for a while. And then we hit 2008. Now, at the current time, Jungle Fury was on. I still didn't even care, wasn't even paying attention to it. But what did happen is we went to a Kmart, of all places. We went to Kmart. And I saw that they had these new Power Rangers Super Legends for my boy, the Titanium Ranger. I don't know if it's going to focus there or not. But yeah, my boy, the Titanium Ranger. Begged my mom to get this dude, and that really set off the gears in my head. And that's when I decided to start watching those old tapes again and start checking out some YouTube clips and maybe some of the other seasons I was missing. And then we got to my baby right here, Power Rangers RPM. Not only my favorite Power Rangers season, probably my favorite TV show ever made. I could get into that forever. We'd be here all day. But I kind of wanted you guys to get a perspective for me where I fell with the franchise, and that'll kind of key into how we go forward with it and where my sort of biases lie. Suffice to say, I was back on the horse, and I used the scattered episode release period during 2010 to catch up on a lot of the stuff that I had missed out on. Why was there a substantial technical drought of content in 2010? We'll get there, but we gotta still catch up. Trust me, we're almost there. We are almost where we need to be. Hang in there a little bit longer, guys. So Power Rangers has had many different eras of production based on who the current showrunner was. First, it was Saban Entertainment on Fox from 1993 until 2001. In 2001, in one of the biggest entertainment deals the likes of anyone had ever seen, Fox Family Worldwide, which included the channel Fox Kids was broadcast on, was sold in a deal to Disney for over $3 billion, and that would in turn change the network into ABC Family. The current season, Time Force, would be the last season made by Saban. The next season, Wild Force, would be made by Disney and would be shot and produced like any other season, with most of the original cast staying on. However, one man in particular who had been with Power Rangers since the beginning kept the ship afloat during the transition, and even wrote and directed its finale, The End of the Power Rangers. Hey, that's a good name for a video essay. That man's name is Jonathan Dizchord. But we will put a pin in that, as now we have to discuss Disney. So the Disney era was very contentious in its days. It has a much stronger following nowadays, and especially in the last decade has found its fans. It did have a different feel to Power Rangers of old, but eventually it found its footing. Now, initially, things were great with Disney and Power Rangers. Big promotional pushes, lots of marketing, McDonald's tie-ins, video games. But as the years went by, they started to regret this part of that purchase. See, they didn't buy Power Rangers, they bought a multinational television empire that came with Power Rangers and Digimon. And trust me, if you think Power Rangers got it bad, they effectively took a shotgun out back with Digimon, and that poor series has still never properly recovered. You can really tell when Power Rangers was off their radar when they cut the normal 40 episodes per season down to 32 during 2005's Mystic Force. Now, see, similar to how Wild Force had a completely original 10th anniversary special with all the original Red Rangers returning to fight the Machine Empire from Zeo, 2006's Operation Overdrive also had a 15th anniversary special, with 5 veteran Rangers returning, led by Adam, the Black Mighty Morphin Ranger, to help the new Rangers defeat the son of Mighty Morphin's Lord Zed and Rita. They also had a huge marketing campaign with new games, re-releases of old figures, the works. Behind the scenes, Disney was getting tired of this partnership. Disney is a company that likes to control what they own in its entirety. Power Rangers has always been a joint venture with Toei. Disney was even workshopping an animated Power Rangers series of their own, loosely harkening back to Mighty Morphin. Toei, naturally, denied this pitch, reinstating their firm grip on the IP, and by that point Disney was basically done. Jungle Fury, the 16th season, would be their last. If not for Bandai actually agreeing to fund production of what would be the true final season of Power Rangers RPM. Well, true for about 1 year. Personal conjecture here, but these final 2 seasons are my favorite of the franchise, and for good reason. Jungle Fury and RPM were able to go a little more in-depth with the characters, and in RPM's case, gave zero shits about following genre conventions, and it decided to make Mad Max and Terminator, but with Power Rangers. Giving us some of the most character-driven stories we've ever had, and genuinely good acting and directing that sometimes makes you feel like you aren't even watching Power Rangers. Now, I could gush all day about how RPM is the greatest TV show ever made, and has the greatest sequence in all of fiction. But we'd never get started on our main topic. The reason I wanted to give you guys the history lesson so far on where the franchise has been is to give you some perspective, to see the highs, the lows, the legacy that it's developed over its 2 decades. I didn't even get into some of the crazier stuff like Bulk and Skull, Countdown to Destruction, the insane space opera thing going on in Lost Galaxy, the Titanium Ranger, Rocky's Tamales, the Giant Pizza. But leading up to 2013, where our subject at hand lies, the franchise was doing pretty good. There was a consistent level of quality, baseline level of quality, even if not every season was amazing, some better than others. We knew more or less that Power Rangers was over in 2009, as major news outlets reported on it. Power Rangers had been almost cancelled about half a dozen times, but this time, it was for real. Until next year, when Mighty Morphin Power Rangers would air on cable once again, dubbed by fans as either MMPR Reversion, MMPR 2010, MMPR V2, MMPR that one where the betrayed GIF comes from, MMPR that one with the shitty special effects, MMPR the one where they used a shot of the Q-Rex from Time Force behind MMPR Red. This was a stopgap year. Bandai was not done with Power Rangers, and I guess ABC had that time slot open, so they made this Frankenstein of what is already a Frankenstein show. While fans would consider this an utterly bleak time period to be a fan of the franchise, behind the scenes, a deal was being struck. Saban himself, the man who brought Power Rangers to the West, was going to buy back Power Rangers and Digimon and bring it back to the mainstream. Now, Bandai already began making toys for 2011. They had already decided on Samurai Sentai Shinkenger to be used, as it followed after RPM Sentai season Go Onger. In fact, you can even go online and find prototype toys with the Samurai Rangers using the likenesses of Austin St. John, Jason David Frank, and David Yost, because Bandai didn't know what was going to happen. And so, with less than a year to get things going, we got Power Rangers Samurai in early 2011. So the Power Rangers were back, and this time they were here to stay. The Samurai Rangers were everywhere. They had Happy Meal toys, video games. They got a TV movie that premiered on Nickelodeon. They were in the Macy's Day Parade. They met Al Roker. They were even given a primetime premiere for their first episode. Or at least the first episode that aired on television, that is. Now, Samurai was made on a very tight time frame. The franchise had been bought back in mid-2010, and this show needed to come out in 2011. So they had less than a year to get the show put together. With that in mind, you can certainly cut the season a little slack. With the overwhelming success and fresh eyes on the franchise, Saban was poised to make a big splash with their next season. Coincidentally, they were coming up on their 20th season, so they decided to go all out. And with a fresh season under their belts that honestly improved a lot by the time they got to Super Samurai, the team was ready to deliver something. To use the term appropriately, mega.
Absolutely watched Samurai and Super Samurai, of course. And so, because of the fact that it's like my Mighty Morphin, my very first season, it will always hold a special place in my heart for that reason.
So yeah, I watched Samurai. I was about, let's say, 10 years old, 11 years old when Samurai was airing. So, you know, I was growing up to becoming like a pre-teen in a way, but I was still enjoying Power Rangers. Like,
I watched Samurai. So Samurai came after my time, so I had just graduated from high school, and funny enough, Samurai was the very first season of Power Rangers that I auditioned for.
I know it's not the greatest Power Ranger seasons that have ever existed out there, but
I did not hate Samurai.
It was kind of a mixed bag for me. Like, the acting was really a bit stilted, and, you know, the dialogue was really wooden at times.
I still think that there's a lot of really cool things that Samurai did that was Power Rangers original, like bringing Bulk back.
I loved that they included Bulk, Pauly Schreier. I love that they brought him back.
I mean, that was my first exposure to Bulk. Like, I had never heard of him. I didn't even know he was from older seasons until I did, like, research into the older shows and everything like that.
And I did like some of the storylines in Samurai, especially with Decker.
Now, of course, a lot of it comes from Shinkenger.
And I was so upset that A, they were going to make Shinkenger into an adaptation, and I knew they weren't going to do it.
It was a clone of Shinkenger, and I liked Shinkenger, so it was okay.
I feel like I enjoyed it for the reasons people enjoy Shinkenger. I just didn't quite know that yet at the time.
It's hard because I'm a big Samurai Sentai Shinkenger fan. That is like my number one Sentai of all time.
So I did watch Shinkenger in full, and that is the first Sentai season that I watched in full. So Samurai was a unique experience for me because it's the first time I had seen the Sentai counterpart. And so, of course, if you compare the two, you know, I think there's a lot of missed opportunities.
If I had watched the story in Japanese before, it would have been a really good story, but it's like it was the exact same thing.
I want to say Samurai was okay for what it was because it pretty much retold the story of a Shinkenger, but it made it American version. So you got American actors, you got American settings, and it was all right.
However, taking it as its own, which I feel like it should be judged as its own, I loved the suits, the weapons, the Zords, the whole aesthetic of the season.
But really, what kept me engaged for Samurai was that it was the return of Power Rangers, and it was a huge time where Saban Brands was promoting the show and really heavily promoting it. I mean, you look at the ratings for that, that first season. I mean, at one point they had like 11 million viewers or something. And
it was very fresh and exciting at the time with Saban Brands buying back the franchise. It was just a fun moment.
And Samurai kind of brought me back into it and all. I had those toys with those flipping heads.
And, I feel like overall it was a little cheesy and felt a little like dumbed down, and some of the stories could have been executed a little better, but I still enjoyed it overall.
Without Power Rangers Samurai, we wouldn't have got like this last decade of Power Rangers.
Really, Samurai had some good stuff going for it that I think led to some of the really good stuff that you see in, like modern Rangers today. We wouldn't have that without kind of the experimental phase that is Samurai.
Protectors of the land, sea, and air. Victory time! Intergalactic invaders are no match for...
Go save great Megazord, ready! Mega Strike!
Power Rangers Megaforce. The brand new series premieres Saturday, February 2nd at 1. Only on Nick.
Saban Brands presents all-new series Power Rangers Megaforce, premiering Saturday, February 2nd at 1 p.m. on Nickelodeon. The newest installment marks 20 years for the Power Rangers property and features new cast and mega action. Los Angeles, California, January 22nd, 2013. Saban Brands and Nickelodeon today announced Power Rangers, the #1 show with boys 2 to 11 and boys 6 to 11 across all TV in its time period, will debut its all-new season, Saban's Power Rangers Megaforce, on Saturday, February 2nd at 1 p.m. on Nickelodeon. Power Rangers Megaforce marks the 20th anniversary of the franchise and kicks off its year-long celebration. Following the premiere, the show will air regularly Saturdays at 1 p.m. on Nickelodeon, with encores airing Saturdays at 8 a.m. Eastern on Nicktoons. We're delighted to continue our partnership with Nickelodeon and introduce fans everywhere to a mega installment of the 20-year franchise, said Ellie DeKell, president of Saban Brands. Our collaboration will make the launch of the all-new season Power Rangers Megaforce as strong as ever.
My hopes and expectations for Megaforce were certainly high at first because of, there are a lot of rumors and talks about the fact that it would be also eventually adapting Gokaiger, and then the Legendary Battle popped up, and it was kind of a, this curious moment of how are they combining these things? What's going to happen? Very, very interesting. I was looking forward to and wondering how it was all going to play out and if it was going to match the caliber of the Sentai, and by that I don't necessarily mean, the quality, but more the fact that the Sentai really treated it as a true anniversary and celebrated that.
I think when it comes to expectations for Megaforce, I think I just was interested. I do remember now seeing the Legendary Battle in the trailer for Megaforce, and so I think I was definitely hyped to see how they were going to bring that into Power Rangers. Because I think everybody thought that was like the coolest thing ever when it happened in Gokaiger. So actually getting to see an American version of that was extremely exciting.
When I saw that it was going to be more like a celebration of the 20th anniversary of Power Rangers, I was really excited. My hopes were really high. My expectations were high.
When it came from Megaforce, definitely I was there when the cast got announced. Well, I wasn't there at Power Morphicon, but I did see the trailer. I did see when the cast got announced.
My hopes and expectations going into Megaforce, I just wanted to see a fun story. After Samurai, I was like, I don't know, I just felt like the acting and the writing, whatever, and I was like, well, maybe, a new cast, everything.
So hopefully I thought it'll be in the line of like Dino Thunder and try to be like a better version of Mighty Morphin. So I had like a lot of expectations.
I was just excited for the show in general because like it was the 20th season and they were putting like a lot of their marketing into like these Legendary Rangers, like releasing these Legendary Rangers in those action card games, like having them do like dances at conventions and having old Rangers like pop up and try to promote the show in a way.
So my hopes and expectations were this high. I mean, they were really high.
I think that Megaforce as a whole is not the greatest, but I think we've had worse in the franchise, in my opinion. But something about Megaforce, just that era of time, just is also something that is just really special to me, just like Samurai is, but like for different reasons. And so I look back fondly at that era.
It was, I'm going to say a letdown, but I personally was really excited, like, going into it.
Yeah, Megaforce was doomed since day one.
Overall, I think my opinion is very similar to Samurai in that I didn't hate those seasons. I thought they were okay. I just feel like there was a lot of missed potential.
For a show being released during the 20th anniversary, a show being set in the roots of Mighty Morphin, and including all these legendary Rangers, which were meant to throw back for the older fan in mind, I feel like there definitely was a lot of lost potential there.
I thought that it had a lot of potential, and I think it did a really good job of setting up the mystery.
And there's no answers. It's just bullshit. It's just, here it is. Enjoy it. You're probably our target demographic of 5 years old, and this is going to go right over your head.
Megaforce is okay. Like, the first half of Megaforce, I honestly, I actually really did enjoy the first half a little bit. Even though they did a little bit changes, even though the comedy was not my style.
Just think that missed opportunities is kind of like the main thing to say about the 2 seasons, that there's a lot of really cool ideas. They just didn't go all out with them as they could have. And that's kind of, looking back on it 10 years later, it's like, what could we have done here?
And, hearing some of the behind the scenes things of what they wanted to do or what some of the writers wanted to do versus what happened really makes you disappointed for the final outcome.
In any franchise, there's a dark, sad time in its timeline, and I think that Megaforce is definitely the time that Power Rangers struggled its most and had no real, clear idea of what it wanted to be.
It was okay. If you have to take it down to the one soundbite of it, how do I feel about Megaforce? It was fine.
And so, with all that information in mind, guys, we can finally start talking about Megaforce. We made it, guys. Let's get started with episode 1, Mega Mission. Hey there, guys. Figured I'd take a quick second here, take a quick pause on the video. Just did knock out that standard YouTuber-y stuff. I do want to mention that if you guys are enjoying this video, I would really appreciate if you could like, comment it, share it with your friends, subscribe, all that good stuff. That would really help me out, as we did spend a lot of time working on getting this video put together for you guys. And if you guys are really enjoying the video and you'd like to support us to try to get more of these videos out faster, then I will recommend going down below to our Patreon and subscribing to one of the tiers. We'd love to have you on there. Patreon's also where you'll find the original cut of this video. Now, the script hasn't changed at all. It's mostly to do with the visuals, as we had to change out a lot of the video footage for still frames. So you'll find that version over on Patreon with all the video footage intact. But with all that being said, this is how we're introduced to the 20th anniversary season of Power Rangers. Holy shit, legendary Rangers from my childhood, Lightspeed Rescue, Wild Force, Lost Galaxy, and some Rangers I've never seen until now.
Kid, wake up! Wake up! Wake up! Are you getting off the bus or what?
Weird dream. Yeah, you said it, buddy. That's definitely a way to get your show off on the right foot and get your audience hyped up for the crossover. So this is Troy, the new kid in town at Harwood County, who fell asleep and had a dream of the Power Rangers fighting. Which in this universe is probably not that weird, although dreaming about Rangers never seen before on this planet is definitely a little bit weird. Next, we cut to a classroom where the teacher, Mr. Burley, is posing his students a question. Which species will survive? The students give their opinions, with this girl, Emma, saying how insects will outlive all other organisms. Noah is that kid in class and needs to prove her wrong. He says that robots will outlive everyone, which, I mean, considering there are already fully sentient robots blending into society with Hartford Industries, maybe Noah's not entirely off base. Gia doesn't really care about the question, and Jake is busy simping over her. Troy gives the hallmark answer, saying how,
if humans work together, we can overcome anything.
Everyone gives him this look like he just said something truly awe-inspiring, when all he did was say the equivalent of a random Jaden Smith tweet. From there, we cut to our villains of the season, the insectoids Admiral Malcor and his subordinate Creepox. And also, from that point, we get the theme song of the show, which is literally just the Power Ranger Samurai theme. Which, in and of itself, is only just a remix of Go-Go Power Rangers, but with arbitrary notes changed to make it sound different. Honestly, I think it just sounds worse. I think it sounds a lot more subdued and has a bit less bite to it than the Samurai remix. You're going to want to keep that name in mind. Jonathan Zacher. We're going to come back to him later. So we cut from the intro to Gia and Emma at their lockers, talking about their plans after school. Gia asks Emma if she's going to Ernie's, but Emma says at first she's going to be checking out some rare butterflies at the park first. Gia, being an absolute hashtag girl boss, picks up Emma's books out of her locker without even seeing them fall first. Emma tells Gia to go order her food for her because Gia knows it by heart. These two are absolutely the best couple on the show. Gia walks by Jake in the hall. Jake stops to take a look at her, and we get an ass shot of a high school girl. You think they talked to the Mr. Schneider for directing tips? Jake finds out Gia is headed to Ernie's and decides to drag Noah along there with him so he can continue to simp on her. We cut to our villains, who I'm just going to refer to now going forward as the Warstar aliens, decide that Earth would be a good planet to invade. Despite the fact that, over a dozen other alien armies have tried and failed to invade planet Earth by now, and we still are at least a decade away before the Power Rangers universe is going to treat aliens as equal citizens, so I don't think that Malcor really thought this idea all the way through. Meanwhile, in a cave on some random beach, a giant talking head named Gosei sits in a storage unit and calls out to a little robot buddy named Tensu to wake up. Gosei tells Tensu that the aliens have already invaded Earth, and I gotta stop you right here, Gosei. What do you mean they've invaded Earth? They've barely had time to put money in the meter yet. Gosei asks Tensu to assemble a team.
Don't say it.
Teenagers.
I like how for a second Noah's considered to be the Red Ranger, but the monitor just says screw that and demotes him to Blue, and they just pick the first guy in a karate outfit they see, which just so happens to be our boy Troy. So the boys go to hang out at Ernie's Brain Freeze, a froyo cafe in the mall. This is going to be the main hangout for the cast this season. And even though, for example, the Jungle Fury Rangers had their hideout in a restaurant too, at least they actually worked there and they had a separate place to go to do Ranger stuff in the back. And let's be fair, this place certainly doesn't live up to the legacy of Ernie's Juice Bar, Angel Grove. While all this is going on, Emma's at the park, admiring nature, taking photos of that butterfly. However, she sees one of the monsters and is nearly spotted by them. But back with the real plot, Jake's froyo costs $6. He gives Ernie a 20. Ernie is so perplexed by this, he checks the 20, the most common US bill, to see if it's a counterfeit. While that is going on, the three teens are teleported away in a field of light. Ernie, despite being in the same room as them and in earshot of all of this, probably hears these kids yelling as they're whisked away, but he doesn't even flinch when the screams are made. Look, if I was Ernie right now, I'd run. With how suspicious he is of a 20, he's gotta be running some shady shit going on at this froyo stand. And we now have 3 kids missing? His ass is gonna fry. So with this being Troy's first day, we would probably expect that he's gonna be getting acclimated to the town, maybe meeting some new people, making some friends. No, he's just on the rooftop, kicking water bottles. He too is also teleported away. And remember this scene. The fan base won't let you forget about it. The 4 teens are teleported to a mysterious cave, where they're greeted by a little Johnny Five looking robot. Noah addresses the little robot and says,
"An old school robot, like in the movies."
Which I guess kinda makes sense, although in a franchise that has giant robots fighting every week, Does that imply the robots sort of vintage, or that the idea of robots in general to these kids is science fiction? We'll get more into that later. The lights come on, and our soon-to-be Rangers see the walls adorned with keys featuring Power Rangers from the last 20 years. As Troy stares into the visor of one of the Rangers, Time Force Red, even though there's really no significant reason for him to do so, he begins to remember his dream he had. However, he decides he's going to keep this a secret and not tell the other Rangers for now. A voice calls to them, coming from a giant metal Easter island head on the wall, who calls himself Gosei. He takes his form because he claims it's meant to be more familiar to humans, because what human doesn't trust a talking head on the wall? What the hell is he thinking? Well, to be fair, he actually claims he was mentored by Zordon, the mentor of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Gosei is said to be a guardian of the Earth, and claims he is of the Earth itself. Gosei has revealed himself because he will only awaken when the Earth is met with an extraordinary threat. Emma gets teleported in halfway into the spiel, so clearly it wasn't that important for anyone to hear. She tells them about the monster she saw in the woods, and shows them the photo she took. Everyone begins to have doubt, but Gosei reassures them that they were chosen on this mission for a reason. And he decides to prove this with a clip show of all the Rangers' proof of their worth to the team. Emma rides her bike, and she likes nature, so she naturally gets the power of the Phoenix.
Pink is my favorite color, but what's its Ranger deal?
Now look, the way this line is intended to be delivered is to be that she's confused because she showed up late. But with the clunky delivery, it kind of just makes it sound like she's never heard of the Power Rangers before. And that's something we're going to come back to later in this video, definitely. But it's not really the best look to start your anniversary season, having it that your Rangers have never heard of the Power Rangers before. Unless you actually plan to have some payoff to that setup. Noah's thirst for knowledge makes him a shark? Okay. And over on Jake's green monitor, which, no, that is not a technical error, but we will get there eventually. His boundless athleticism makes Gosei pick him to use the stealth of a snake. Look, I get what they're doing, and sure, in the original, Zordon's statements to the original team were a little silly, but they weren't as contradictory as these lines are. Zordon's platitudes were very generic, but they spoke more to what their character was about than actually talking about what dinosaur they were based on. For Gia, Gosei says that she is calm under pressure and has the ferocity of a tiger. For all 2 seconds we get to see of her doing math homework to prove this is weirdly one of the most accurate statements that Gosei has said all day. Troy has the purity of spirit and incredible discipline. He's met adversity in his life with great skill. What adversity? We'll talk about it a little bit later, although to be frank, they don't really get into it that much in the show. Naturally, the only response Troy has to all this is,
"There must be a mistake here. I'm new in town."
Noah, pushing up his glasses to remind you he's a nerd, wants to know who the legendary Rangers on the walls are based on. Gosei doesn't really give him a straight answer, but what he does give them are morphers that are shaped like his own head that he even calls Gosei morphers. Gosei gives them an extended toy commercial showing them all the new gadgets they're going to have this season, their weapons, their morphers, their Zords, etc. Noah asks how they're going to be able to use all this tech. Gosei, instead of telling them, he just says that they're going to learn in due time. How about you tell them now, Gosei? Troy tells Gosei if it's to save the Earth that they're all in. Despite him being the new kid and barely talking to any of them, he makes the decision for them to risk their lives. Gosei then drops the teens on their asses when he teleports them to a random pavilion in town. The Rangers see an army of the foot soldiers for this season. They're called Loogies. Yes, Loogies. The Rangers engage them in a fight, and honestly, it's a pretty good battle. It helps establish the Rangers' different personality traits. Troy and Gia, for example, go for direct attacks using their martial arts backgrounds. Emma uses her camera's flash to stun her opponents. Jake uses a soccer ball? Noah can't really fight, so he basically uses slapstick to survive his battle, while also making very weird, Billy, incredible lines.
Fascinating.
Once the fight escalates, Troy asks them to follow his lead, and they do what we've been waiting all episode for them to do. Few things to cover real quick. First, the suits. I really do like the Megaforce suits a lot. They look like a modern version of the Mighty Morphin suits. The visor with a trim and the shape of an animal motif, the silver lips, the chest insignia. I like how regal and angelic the suits look. Wonder why. I admit the white pants did look weird at first, but it's grown on me since then, and it's honestly one of my favorite Ranger team designs. It might even be in my top 10. The morphing sequence is kind of basic. It feels unnecessarily slow. The Rangers standing and having a suit flash over them has been done before. Long morphs have been done before. This either needed to be quicker, like Wild Force or Dino Thunder, or more intricate and flashy, like Jungle Fury. Literally, the first thing that happens after morphing is Gia tells Jake,
"It's time for a new weapon!"
and gives Jake a keep up the pace kind of attitude, as though she literally didn't just become a Power Ranger herself 5 seconds ago. And to summon said weapons, the Rangers this season actually use cards that they put into their morpher in order to morph, summon weapons, and perform special attacks. It adds a lot of versatility to their moveset, but it also has the potential to make fights kinda dull. Luckily, throughout most of the series, they managed to not overdo it with the special attacks and keep to using their actual weapons more often. It just feels like something that would have the potential to be really boring. I'm not playing a video game. I don't need to have ranged specials in my hand-to-hand combat show. From here, we hop into the first bit of actual Sentai footage being used this season. This is where the writing has been pretty rough so far. A lot of the fight banter in the season is pretty dry, almost militaristic in a way. It's not interesting, doesn't really tell you anything about the characters. It's honestly pretty forgettable and kind of annoying at worst.
Guys, we need Troy!
Troy shows up in a little dragony tornado. That's weird. It's cool entrance. Seems a little try-hard. Brock suggests sending in a real monster, so he sends down the first monster of the week, Scarabeetle. When the monster threatens them, the Rangers tell the monster that they will defend the Earth. Then they hit the pose. The Warstar aliens are stunned to see Power Rangers in the 20th anniversary season, on the planet with the most Power Rangers living on it. Gosei chimes in and tells them it's time to call upon their Mega Blasters. This is the first piece of advice he gives them the entire fight. Thank God they figured out how to summon their weapons, or else they'd be dead. They use their cards in order to get the head of their respective Zord, and it powers up their blaster. Seems a little excessive to have them debut their main weapons and their blaster in the same episode. If you didn't know any better, it almost would seem like they combined 2 episodes into one. Using their new disembodied animal heads, they break the boulder the monster is rolling on and deflect the blast. They also take the time to reintroduce the weapons they were literally just using. They each get a shot in with their new weapons to attack the monster before combining their weapons into a team blaster. Apparently, there's a theme of sky, land, and sea with the Rangers this season. Troy and Emma are sky, probably because they talk like they get high before every line they read. Jake and Gia are land, because the two of them are the most grounded characters we have so far. And Noah is the sea, because his actor John Mark Loudermilk makes me very... They destroy the monster and utter their catchphrase.
Mega Rangers! That's a mega win!
Never go with the first draft, people. They then walk all the way back to the cave to celebrate. I guess Gosei texted them his address. Anyways, Gosei congratulates them. Noah says it was all luck, but Gosei says luck had nothing to do with it. Emma, however, has some reservations.
I'm not so sure. The helmet does mess up my hair.
Damn, for a girl who used to ride a BMX bike, you'd think she'd be used to helmet hair. It's almost like this is a forced reference to something. After that, they all put their hands together, chant,
First defenders never surrender!
And that's our first episode. Well, it's alright. I remember when it premiered, I enjoyed it simply because it felt fresher than Samurai at the very least. They set up our team, they set up our villains, they gave us a civilian fight, a morph fight. It does what it needs to do. It's very cookie cutter. I guess I need to address the elephant in the room here, or in this case, the Mastodon. This episode is obviously copying its entire structure from the very first episode of Power Rangers, Day of the Dumpster. This is all a very deliberate recycling of that original episode story. We do get a few new things. Troy's dream, the villains aren't locked in a prison, Emma gets to wait a minute before joining the rest of the team. Otherwise, this is the same story. teens hanging out at their hangout spot, they get teleported by a giant head and a robot sidekick who have awoken because of an alien invasion. Giant head speaks of attributes that make the teens a worthy Power Ranger. Black Ranger doubts a giant head, Red Ranger inspires the team to fight, civilian fight against mooks, then they morph and fight the mooks, then they fight a monster, minus the Megazord fight. This is basically the same episode. Of course, there's no Bulk and Skull this time, but at least we have Ernie. Well, at least N. Ernie. On its own merits, Mega Mission is a pretty mediocre first episode. It's not bad, but it's not interesting. As an anniversary, I guess it's neat they decided to play it so close to the Day of the Dumpster's plot, but anytime it copies a line from this 20-year-old episode, it feels very out of place. Tensu's teenagers, Emma's helmet hair. This episode doesn't really give us that much to work with, but I will say I appreciate the brief character moments we do get in the classroom. Noah is a teacher's pet and definitely watches The Big Bang Theory unironically. Emma is a free spirit environmental hippie. Gia is the badass goth girl, please step on me. Jake is insecure about himself and also has a lot of issues with trust, which I didn't really pick up on the first time I watched this show. Troy is stoic but has a pure heart. He really goes out of his way to help those who need it, and can see the good in others. The villains, they exist. They don't get to do much, but come on, how the hell do you not know the Power Rangers live on Earth?
You know, Gosei, let me ask you something. What the fuck have you been doing for the last decade and a half? Assuming the Power Rangers takes place sometime equivalent to our own world, then In Space would have happened in 1998. And in that time, the Earth has been attacked by demons from the underworld, time-traveling mutants, monsters created from our own pollution, evil space ninjas, genetically modified dinosaurs, more demons from the underworld, 4 different villain factions all trying to get the world's greatest treasure, the Rinshi army, and more demons from the underworld who just last week flooded the entire town using the power of human sorrow. And you think that now is the best time to send out a team of Rangers when they're fighting bug monsters who, to be honest, didn't even know the Earth existed a week ago. Aside from that, this wasn't a terrible start. We've had better introductory episodes, and we've also had worse. Let's see if things can pick up from here in our next episode. He blasted me with science.
Put power on your plate and learn to empower your body. Balance your meals using the 5 food groups as a guideline, and be sure that half your plate is filled with fruits and vegetables. Learn how at PowerRangers.com.
We open up to the kids taking a quiz. Jake is struggling with it. Troy has a flashback to him seeing Creepox in the woods and meeting him for the first time. A little weird for only the second episode to already imply enough time has passed to necessitate a flashback, but okay. Creepox talks about how much better insects are than humans. In response, Troy, the guardian of the Earth, tells Creepox he knows humans are stronger, but he won't fight him just to prove it. You aren't fighting him to prove anything. You're fighting him to stop innocent people from dying, you idiot! Mr. Burley is asleep while the students take their exam. The students can finish their tests and place it in the basket, and then they can just leave? Okay. Mr. Burley is startled awake by the bell, and then is distracted by the bell. Honestly, when I was reading the plot description, I thought this was going to be an episode about Jake cheating on the test and switching his test out with Gia. Jake goes to chat with Gia.
Oh, it's only you.
Well, I guess I've had worse reactions.
Gia is trying to hide her morpher so that it doesn't blow her secret identity. Jake, being a simp, tries and fails to hit on Gia, who is really getting fed up with Jake. It's nice to see a Power Ranger season allow a Ranger to have a crush on another Ranger, but be mature enough about it to not have it be their sole character focus. Yep, from here on out, Jake is going to respect Gia's wishes and treat her the way she asks to be treated. Back in space, Vrock decides to test the human's strength. Because Troy refused to fight him earlier this morning, Creepox believes humans are weak. So what you're saying is that if Troy just kicked Creepox's ass, Malcor would have taken the crew and just left the Earth alone? At any rate, Malcor sends down a monster to perform said test.
After class, Noah goes to talk to Mr. Burley and sees that Mr. Burley has a conspiracy board in his office. Stuff like the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, etc. Strange that not a single Power Rangers-related myth could have existed in this time, especially in our 20th anniversary season. Come on, no demon sightings in Mariner Bay, no time portals in Silver Hills, no dragons from Briarwood, come on, anything. The two of them then bond over their fascination of myths and monsters. Jake and Gia walk home from school. Jake, being a simp, continues to pester Gia. The two spot a UFO monster and pretend to hug to avoid it capturing them. Jake decides that he doesn't need the other Rangers, for some reason, and that the two of them can handle this on their own. The monster, named UFO, which, let's be fair, that's low-key one of the best monster names I've ever come up with, captures a group of people in a net and brings them down to the shore. Jake and Gia follow them and watch from afar. Gia leads the duo into morphing. The other Rangers show up as well, and they all join the battle. A cool little tidbit is that UFO mentions how they're experimenting on the humans and studying them for the insectoids to best assimilate them. We get another showing for the individual weapons, and can I just say, Dragon Sword sounds way too much like Dragon Zord for my liking. Easy to say the wrong thing.
Let's try an experiment of our own!
So they use their combined weapons to form the Megaforce Blaster and destroy UFO. Except, not really. Vrock has an ace up his sleeve. His robotic eyeball bat monsters, that he calls Zombats, come down, stab the monster with their stingers, then that makes the monster grow. What exactly are Zombats?
Far too complex for you to understand.
Gosei tells him they earned some Zords for their teamwork. The Zords are heads which attach themselves to vehicles, like a plane or a submarine. Those heads can also be attached to their sidearms as well. I would question the ethics of Power Rangers commandeering government vehicles, but this is all small potatoes in the grand scheme of things. And besides, in the Power Rangers world, you just kind of accept that individual people's lives are secondary to aiding the Power Rangers. Or hell, you can just say they're all abandoned, like the abandoned buildings districts they fight in. In any case, we get some shots of each of the Rangers piloting their own Zords and getting the hang of things. Gosei lets the Rangers know they can combine their Zords into the Megazord. Everyone spouts off some bullshit.
I hope they run on biofuel.
No, Emma. They run on us. Our courage. Our strength. That's what gives them power.
As well as this Oscar-winning line read from Troy.
I'm really flying a dragon!
I just gotta say, I love the way the Gosei Great Megazord looks. Very simple, but I like the whole motif it's got going on. The little wings on the helmet are a nice touch. I'll just say, Megazord fights are kind of hard to provide interesting commentary on, so I'll just say that by this point in the episode, I'm busy checking my Twitter. They defeat UFO, and Malcor is pissed. The teens head back to the juice bar, all teasing each other, and Gia says they should have gone in as a team. And they all exchange platitudes about how awesome teamwork is. So that's the second episode. Another episode that feels like it exists just to get the ball moving on establishing the status quo. Not really all that fun or interesting to watch. It's really dry. Something about the fight this episode just felt kind of dull. The music was bland, it felt unmotivated. I guess the show is still getting its footing and establishing the character dynamics, but it felt like MMPR, and not in a good way. There was at least a cool US footage fight, even if it was mostly just them getting their asses kicked by the Loogies. For characters, it's kind of all over the place. Obviously, the main focus is on Jake and Gia bonding, trying to work together on the team this episode. For them, we see the clear dichotomy between them. Jake's a simp, Gia's being polite, but Jake won't take the hint that she isn't interested. She's being nice to him because they literally have to work together to save the world. We also see Mr. Burley and Noah bonding over legendary creatures. It's a nifty idea, but doesn't really contribute much to this episode. It's kind of just there. Also, Noah completed Mr. Burley's Rubik's Cube before he left. What a dick. As far as the villains, there's really not a whole lot this episode. All we really get is the strange feud between Kreepox and Troy that comes out of nowhere. Vrock does mention that when he sends the Zombats down, that they're something he gained due to being a royalty, which we'll put a pin in that and come back to it later. Another thing to put a pin in is that while Troy and Emma don't really do a whole lot this episode, they do have an interesting exchange during the Zord fight. The way that Troy commands Emma and gives her such clear and direct, almost militant-like instructions on how to pilot the Zord. Let's come back to that one later as well.
Alright, so now we have the team, we have the morphers, we have the weapons, and now we have the Megazord 2. So now that we can finally give a little breathing room for the cast to have some fun, let's get into episode 3, Going Viral.
Whether it's playing soccer or just hanging out with friends, physical fitness and eating healthy are important parts of any Power Rangers day. With 60 minutes of daily exercise and eating right, you can be sure to truly train like a Power Ranger.
Noah decides to make a social media site for the whole school. One of it's as popular as slap.com. Jake is busy simping on Gia again. He meets up with Noah in the computer lab and brings his fucking battle axe to school in 2013? What the fuck? The fact that there are no security guards or metal detectors in this high school is probably the most unrealistic part of this whole show. Well, anyways, Jake wants Noah to fix his battle axe for him because it's a little off with the weight. He wants it fixed to impress Gia. You only put guys like you on a list, right? Also, it's only the 3rd episode. How did you mess up your axe? Also, why do you want Noah to do it? Why don't you ask Gosei to fix it? You know, the magical talking head who has a little robot assistant, and not just a kid who's really good at school. Whatever, man. I mean, I guess it's kind of funny, and I guess they would have done something like this back in MMPR. Moving on, Noah starts to feel inadequate about himself because he can't even properly wield a battle axe like Jake can, even though Jake himself struggles to wield this giant axe much better than Noah can without morphing first. Anyways, Brock's next scheme is to use a monster named Virox to infect the people with a virus. So they catch the virus I can't say the name of because I'll get demonetized. This virus turns ordinary citizens into loogies, so maybe that's where they get their name from. They all got a cold. Noah is trying to get hashtag Ranger Fit, bulking up and doing some push-ups, which is especially funny when you actually see how ripped John Mark Loudermilk was at the time. Jake tries to give him a pep talk about just believing in himself. Meanwhile, Emma asks if Gia knows about Jake's crush on her. She pretends to act like she didn't even know about it. That is really not a good sign for Jake if this is how she discusses him with her bestie. Noah and Jake go out to find the monster, although Jake left his axe at school. Jesus Christ. And Noah is hesitant to morph because of him feeling inadequate to Jake. He eventually does, and he goes to rescue this woman being attacked by the monster. She keeps changing between being Japanese and American between frames.
Are you some kind of superhero?
In the 20th anniversary season, look, I get the idea. It's so Noah can say,
I guess we're about to find out.
As a show of him questioning himself on his heroism. You know, is he a hero or is he not a hero? Step up to the plate. Although maybe she just thought he was Masked Rider or something. Noah isn't able to make any headway in the fight, so Jake has to come in and save him. While that's been going on, the other 3 have been trying to round up the citizens who have been transformed into loogies, and keep them, well, for a lack of a better term, quarantined, so they don't infect other people or cause any harm to themselves or others. The Rangers have to make sure not to actually hurt the transformed citizens. They eventually get overwhelmed and climb a storage container to take shelter on. This feels like a pretty unnecessary scene in the grand scheme of things. They call Jake and Noah, and we get a funny, if not really weird moment where Jake drops the axe on Noah's foot and crushes it because Jake is too distracted trying to simp on Gia like this is Laurel and Hardy or Keenan and Kel. The next couple scenes are honestly pretty awesome. Emma and Troy are trying to stop the loogies from hurting themselves. Meanwhile, Noah and Jake are fighting Virox, and Noah pulls out this crazy maneuver where he uses both Jake's axe and his bowgun for a combo maneuver, and it's honestly pretty cool, not gonna lie. He defeats Virox with some help from the team, and then Virox grows. The Rangers were able to put the loogies somewhere safe where they won't be harmed. Inside a fucking tornado! Gotta loves Power Ranger science. Speaking of, they also got them sealed in a concrete block to keep them from moving. Noah decides he's got one more thing to do before fighting the monster, and runs to go free those people using the axe. Even though they clearly left a hole on top for air, so it's not like there's any time limit, you could wait until the Megazord fight is over before you do this. Honestly, those people might be safer in a concrete block than being stuck out in the street being able to get crushed by a Megazord. Things aren't looking so good on the Megazord, but thanks to some more Heart of the Cards, they unlock some new Zords. Ready? It's only the 2nd episode you've had your Megazord and you're already slapping new pieces on it? The new Zord configuration is called the Sea Megazord and uses the Sea Brothers heads.
Look, it's Steve the Pirate.
Naturally, their brand new toys defeat the monster and save the day. Noah manages to actually fix his mystical battle axe, and it's so light that Jake misswings and breaks the school computer. Jake tells him that Noah made it too light, and Noah tells him,
"Just believe in yourself."
Which honestly feels like an appropriate way to end the episode. This is easily the best episode of the season so far. It gives us some great character dynamic moments, showing off the differences between the two of the boys. It shows off Jake's physicality and his strength, it shows off Noah's tech smarts, but it allows Noah to grow from his original lack of confidence in himself that he had at the beginning of the episode. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this episode's conflict is pretty contrived and pretty stupid. As I said, why the hell does Noah need to fix his axe? And why is Noah so upset about Jake being better than him in holding an axe? It feels like something's missing here. Maybe if we had some examples of their past showing Jake constantly being better than Noah at everything, it would inform this as being a long-standing issue in their friendship, and not just a petty one-off issue. Also, Jake acts like a fucking blockhead in this episode. It's funny, yes, but it doesn't paint him in a great light. But the moment where Noah wields the two weapons and defeats the monster is a genuinely awesome moment, and a highlight of the season.
So yeah, it feels like things are starting to get a little bit better. I kind of like that episode, honestly. Maybe things are starting to turn around for the better. Let's see if it keeps up in the next episode. Stranger Ranger.
We want to give a special shout out to the Power Force.
And all the fans, young and old, who help support the Power Rangers.
As well as all the Rangerlicious fan sites out there. Great job.
Maybe one of them will make me admin one day. That'd be awesome.
Don't forget me too.
I'm still waiting for an interview from the many Megatastic podcasts.
Thanks again to all of Ranger Nation. We love the support and can't wait for you to see our next adventures in Power Rangers Megaforce.
Go, go, Megaforce!
We start off some more legendary battle footage, and wait, who the hell is that? Troy wakes up in the middle of the night, wondering why he's still having these dreams. Emma is helping out at the juice bar and overhears some guy pretending to be the Red Ranger, when really he looks more like he's pretending to be Pat the NES Punk, or the lead guy from Green Day. This bothers Emma, but doesn't really bother Troy that much. He basically just laughs it off. Ernie lets Troy in the back of the juice bar, because apparently Ernie does not care about either health code violations or child labor laws. Troy grabs the 3 literal buckets of water bottles that Ernie's kept back there for some reason, and sets up a training environment for himself in the woods to use them as targets. Back at the juice bar, Pat the NES Punk is continuing to tell made-up stories to all the patrons, much to the chagrin of the Rangers. Someone announces that there's a monster attack, and Pat the NES Punk runs out to seemingly go fight the monster. He finds where it is, and the real Rangers battle him. The monster, Dragonfly, uses super speed to outpace the Rangers. Dragonfly puts up a good fight against the Rangers. He even nearly kills Pat the NES Punk, who himself gets caught in the line of fire, especially once Creepox enters the fray. Creepox is still pissed about the previous battle with Troy and wants revenge. That man is a hater for life. Creepox means business and utterly wrecks the Rangers, especially Troy. Once the monster attack is over, the Rangers, still morphed, talk to this faker. Jake especially chews him out, while Troy is much more calm about it. He thanks him for wanting to help, but they tell him that he needs training, and the special powers they have to fight monsters like this. Overall, what would have been a solid character moment for Troy, but Troy also fucking calls Jake by name in front of this dude.
Do you realize what you've done?
Jake!
That kinda kills the whole scene for me. Maybe that's why it's so short. Troy realizes he's screwed up, and so they gotta get out of there fast before the guy puts 2 and 2 together. They head off to the forest, and Troy sets up a training course for the rest of the team. Pat the NES Punk follows them, and they try to make him #RangerFit2. He, naturally, can't do it. The Rangers head back out into the battle to fend off Creepox and Dragonfly. Troy and Creepox get a cool one-on-one fight, with Troy even pulling off this sweet gymnastics maneuver on a beam in the parking garage that they were battling in. He managed to send Creepox packing. The other Rangers are battling Dragonfly. Apparently, the Rangers can equip the new Megazord headers to their blasters, and they use that to defeat Dragonfly. In the Megazord battle, Dragonfly is dashing away. The Megazord cannot run fast enough to catch him. So because they try hard, they get a new Zord. This wasn't even their focus episode. Why did they get a new card?
I knew you and I would make a great couple.
Don't get any ideas.
Jake tries to simp during the Megazord combination. They rider kick the monster and the day is saved. Pat the NES Punk comes clean, and everyone hates him, but Troy tells him he thinks the real Rangers would be proud of him. His Ranger training made him good enough to catch the smoothies Ernie's about to drop once again.
Nice catch! Where did you learn that?
A friend.
Overall, it's not a bad episode. Once again, it's a pretty harmless little story in the vein of MMPR. We get to get a better idea of Troy, how he interprets being a ranger and being a hero and all that. As well as the way he trains himself for battle, it's almost military-esque.
Let's address the other elephant in the room. Some of you guys have probably been asking yourselves, what the hell's up with Troy? Why is he so weird? Why is he so stoic? Why is he so bland? Honestly, now it hasn't been confirmed by Saban or Hasbro or anybody official on their end for it, but it has been discussed by some of the producers on the show, and it has been shown in some of the early design documents for the show that originally Troy was supposed to get dropped off at school by his uncle, who he's living with because his father's in the military. And him being a military kid honestly makes a lot of sense and really kind of explains some of Troy's weirder eccentricities. Why he's so awkward around making friends, why he's been kind of distant and standoffish, why his humor doesn't exactly line up with the rest of the cast. Maybe the tougher outer shell is kind of a defense mechanism that he uses. There's a lot we can kind of infer about Troy from that information, but unless it's actually on the show, as far as I'm concerned, it's my personal headcanon, but it's not actually something that I can say the show does. It's just something the show wishes it could do, but it is simply unable to because it's not on the page.
Hey guys, Editing Dan here with an update. I decided to look over a couple more of those old interviews that story editor James Bates had done, specifically one on Den of Geek with Seamus Kelly. He talked about his experiences with writing the show, some of the difficulties, and some of the storylines that they wanted to tell. And while this doesn't exactly confirm or deny the whole Troy military thing, I did think this passage was really interesting, and I wanted to share it here with you guys. Troy is special. He was almost like a chosen one. Troy was almost the magnet that brought Gosei to choose these kids. Him being there was almost like why the others got chosen because they were at the same school. Was he plugged into the morphin grid? All these things were talked about. Troy actually has a father he moved to town with. And that little bit of information does show that there was more planned for Troy. He had more going on behind the scenes. We just didn't get to see it.
As for what is in the show, it was a pretty decent Troy-focused episode. So to this time, I need to ask myself, have I been too harsh on this show? I remember hating it back when it was on in the air, but so far things haven't been too bad. Sure, there's nothing groundbreaking, and honestly I've seen a lot better seasons, but there's a lot of charm to it and a sense of fun, popcorny energy about the show. Again, much like Mighty Morphin. These are honestly episodes I could rewatch again down the line, maybe not every year, but every now and then. Let's see if the consistency stays up with the next episode. United we stand.
Ranger Nation. Remember that caring and friendship are important parts to being a Power Ranger. Even though we are all different from each other, the Power Rangers accept everyone and know that we have to work as a team.
This episode begins with... Oh, it seems I turned on an episode of Rocket Power by mistake. The girls are taking a look at a rare flower that only blooms once a year. The Magnus Bloomus annulus. Wait, Bloomus. Is that meant to be the same flower that Bloomadoom is based on back in Mighty Morphin Season 2?
If this was an anniversary season, that would have been a cool Easter egg.
In any case, Gia starts taking selfies with Emma and the flower until Gosei calls them away on a mission. After the intro, the Rangers are seen in town, and this is actually the first time they meet Vrock. The Rangers ask what he wants from them, and Vrock poses them this question.
What do any alien beings want from other civilizations?
I don't know, Vrock. What do they want? Anyways, Christopher Columbus over here then sends the Loogies out to attack. The Rangers wonder why he's just watching them like lab rats.
They're stronger than us, faster, smarter. The next generation of the human race is...
living in my basement?
Vrock jumps down and sends in more Loogies. Okay. They fight more Loogies, with Emma and Gia working together to perform a little tag team move. Vrock is intrigued by their absolute unity in battle, and he leaves, taking the Loogies with him. The gang demorph and talk about just how in sync the two girls are. They say they can't stick around because they have photos to go print, and considering the way they both hold each other and look at each other in the eyes is probably code for something else, considering they are definitely girlfriends. Sorry, Jake, it ain't happening. This is the OTP. Up on the insectoid ship, Brock is just in time to meet a new monster who claims to be royalty, just like Brock.
Who does she think she is? Females!
Whoa, Creepox. Keep that to yourself. There are things you don't say in the workplace anymore. You're gonna get your Twitter canceled if you aren't careful. Her name is Bizarra. She's the queen of her hive, and is not too impressed by Malcor's men. She says that females are smarter and better fighters, and because this literally is just evolving into playground arguing between the two, let's move on. She explains that her plan to help Malcor is, and I quote, her royal jelly will make all human males her loyal servants.
One taste, and they will be unable to refuse my commands.
And then the females will fight each other too. Ah, Power Rangers. Emma gets her photos from the 1-hour photo booth. She tells Gia they should go home, pick out their favorites, and upload them online.
So if you haven't already picked out your favorites, why did you develop them into printed out photos? Did your camera not let you view your photos in 2013?
I guess not, since you had to go to a place before you could even see what they looked like. I don't think this is what people meant when they said they wanted the show to go back to the Mighty Morphin days, back before we had digital cameras. Bizarra blasts them with her web, and then they start bickering, immediately going into the cliched scene of the two of them ripping a photo in half, symbolizing their friendship torn apart. Back at the school, Jake and Noah are in the computer lab. Jake clearly learned nothing from the episode where he swung a battle axe and smashed some school supplies. Noah says that the alien they fought today looked different. He didn't look like an insect. You know, Noah, you're right. That alien did look different. Why the hell did he have animal claws and a red color scheme to him, when in the next scene he's back to a silver and blue? Is this just some kind of power he has, or is it an editing goof? Before Jake can get back out there on the field and get in some quality ball time with his bros, Bizarra shows up and blasts the soccer players with her beam. It turns them into her slaves, and she says,
"It's time to work for a living."
Guess she doesn't consider gaming a real career. Jake notices the kids being attacked, and Noah and him jump into action. The girls also make their way over.
Whoa! That's a big bad beetle!
Ah, she said the thing! The boys morph but are paralyzed by her venom. The other three show up, and Bizarra asks,
"How did the photos turn out?"
confusing the girls. Troy goes in to fight, and no joke, almost every line Bizarra says is talking about how men suck and how they're gonna be her slaves. Some real keyboard warrior shit.
"Soon all you males will be under my command."
Never! She gets Troy, and the girls try to summon their weapons to form the Mega Blaster. But they are so pissed off, they don't even realize that they're trying to combine their weapons with only 2 of them, which is definitely not enough to put this thing together. The guys realize the girls must be under a spell because of all this fighting. The girls get launched by Bizarra. Bizarra makes the boys pick her up and bring her to her hideout in the woods, where all the other boys she captured are doing her labor, cleaning her rags, fanning her off. God damn it, I already made a Dan Schneider joke. The girls are in pursuit of the guys, turning the walk into a roast, trading insults with each other along the way. It's at this point I realize this episode really is a homage to Bloom of Doom. Not just because of the flower, but the whole story of the Yellow and Pink Rangers fighting because of a monster putting a spell on them. It's a good way to celebrate the anniversary without being super overt about it. Honestly, really impressed. Emma finds Bizarra and morphs, but she gets caught in a trap. Gia shows up, morphs, and starts the fight off. The guys are stuck behind a force field, and Jake asks what's going on with the girls. Bizarra tells him about the spell, and that the two will never be friends again. Gia tries to fend off Bizarra on her own using the new Land Brother Zords. Gia and Emma continue to argue with each other along the way, and the guys try to talk some sense into them, mentioning to them that they're under a spell, trying to remind them that they've been friends since they were kids. Things are going well until...
Shut your mouths!
The girls then realize they're under a spell. Not because the villain literally just said it out loud, but because they've always been friends and nothing has changed between them. Gosei straight up just says that the power of friendship can break the spell, and that frees Emma from her vines. It also conveniently unlocks another set of Zord heads, the Sky Brothers. Emma breaks Gia free, and the two girls team up against Bizarra. They do a super badass tag team attack and destroy her.
We're free! Yeah, we knew that. No sweat.
Girls go for the strong, silent type.
Brock says some filler nonsense to Creepox, summons some Zombats, the guys morph, summon the Zords, same old, same old. Another Megazord battle where the Rangers set off getting beat. Troy is quick to pull out the new Sky Brothers card. The Sky Zords make them have better punches, and their finisher is a headbutt like the one that Goku did against Piccolo in Dragon Ball. Sure. They win. The girls say,
United we stand, divided we fall.
Which they said earlier verbatim when using the Sky Brothers on their blasters.
United we stand, divided we fall.
At the juice bar, Noah's reading the Foreshadowing Chronicles, and Jake starts teasing him about having to massage Bizarre's feet, to which Noah claps back about him getting hit with a fan. The girls come over and apologize for not being in the right mindset earlier while fighting happened. Noah's about to talk about what's in the newspaper until Emma shushes him. Gia grabs a paper from Emma and sees the photo they took at the start of the episode. Noah's impressed with the flower in the photo, but Gia seems annoyed, saying the whole school will see it. Emma sheepishly admits to it, to which Gia says she loves it, and now everybody will know they're best friends. They all talk about how great the photo is, and the girls hug to close out the episode. This was another decent episode. As I've alluded to, it feels very reminiscent of MMPR's Bloom of Doom episode, but it takes its own spin on it. The episode lets us see the dynamic of Emma and Gia's friendship growing, shows us that despite the two girls being very different, they do still manage to stay friends, and that bond is stronger than even a monster's spell. Could it have been written cleaner? Yeah, the exposition dump about their friendship is not the most ideal way to express it, but it gets the job done. As for the guys, they mostly get some funny bits this episode, from Troy's perpetual "what am I doing with my life" face, to Noah and Jake being grossed out the whole time. The actors definitely had a lot of fun with this episode, evident by them seemingly ready to burst into laughter at any moment. Although, Troy seems like he is super committed to being a servant. I guess again, with that implied military angle, he doesn't turn off the "sir yes sir" mode, even when he's under a spell.
From one Emma story to another, let's head into episode 6, Harmony and Discord.
I may be the smart one in the group, but being a Power Ranger is all about teamwork and cooperation. By working as a team, we can make sure to overcome challenges so that we solve important problems.
Troy starts his morning jog and sees Emma biking along. Troy tries to flag her down and she just doesn't hear him for some reason. Malcor's already got his next plan ready. A monster named Dizchord. Dude doesn't really look like an insect, but regardless, what he is good at is being
awesome to the max! Electric or acoustic, I'm totally epic! Thank you!
Terrible at music. He talks in this faux rocker voice, and Brock even says,
"It's so bad, it hurts!"
in regards to his music. Creepox gets offended at the idea of Dizchord trying to make him his groupie, but Brock makes sure to goad Dizchord into heading into Earth. After the intro, Troy goes and catches up to Emma. He finds her singing a blatantly auto-tuned song in the meadows.
So bloom, bloom, and share your sweet perfume, flowers bloom.
He tells her that the singing is great, and Emma recounts how the singing reminds her of her mother, who would also come out to sing to the trees. Dizchord goes to town and starts playing obnoxious noise he calls music. Everyone in the whole town is bothered by this, except Mr. Burley, who loves it. Dude's also probably a mad Lil Pump fan. The Rangers head down to fight Dizchord. Troy and Emma are immobilized by the music. They can't even fight, which is very odd as the other Rangers aren't heavily affected by the music like they are. Troy thinks it's because they were close to the blast when it first started, which I can't even say is true because they were in the woods while the other three were still in town, and Dizchord started in town. Dizchord sends in the Loogies, and while this song doesn't actually hurt Troy and Emma, it does power up the Loogies. Those dudes are just party rocking and having a good time. The Rangers try to prepare the Mega Blaster, but the music is too much for Troy and Emma, and it misses. Dizchord takes this opportunity to demorph Troy and Emma. He leaves, without finishing them off, or even demorphing the others, so he really accomplished nothing. Malcor is pleased with the results, while Creepox is being very petty. Malcor wants Brock to go down to Earth to keep Dizchord focused on their plan, which Creepox is very salty about. The next day at school, these posers come in with a boombox playing the shittiest club music you've ever heard in your life. This naturally causes Emma's ears to hurt, which Gia tells him to turn it down. It's not because of how trash the music is, but instead because now even normal music is harming Emma. At the juice bar, Ernie's bumping some Castlevania music. However, Troy is a staunch Rondo of Blood purist and cannot handle the sound font. It's so powerful it even causes Troy to act a little off. He heads out because of a headache. Gia gets Ernie to turn down the music. She, Noah, and Jake talk about how both Troy and Emma are bothered by this music. While Emma's out in the forest getting some peace and quiet, the Loogies are prepping Dizchord's stage for the big show. They do a sound test, and the Loogies start jamming out again. Dude, look at those guys having so much fun. Living their best lives.
Yeah! Alright!
Ernie has absolutely no standards, and thinks this song rocks too, but the Rangers recognize it as Dizchord's song. Jake tries to call Troy to warn him, but the music is so loud coming through that Troy is in agony and hangs up before he gets the message. The boys want to warn Emma too, but Gia says it would hurt her as well, and that the three of them can go handle it on their own. They morph, but Brock shoots first and defends the stage so Dizchord can play his music. He easily defeats all three of them, and we get this weird sequence of people all over the world hearing Dizchord's music, accompanied by mostly terrible green screening. Troy is such a hater, he's literally dying from Dizchord's music. Tensu says that they can't block the signal, but Troy comes up with an idea. Brock is about to finish the others off, but Dizchord's music is interrupted by Emma singing auto-tuned karaoke music?
La, 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 la.
It's pretty lame, but it gets Dizchord to stop playing and it distracts Brock for long enough for the other three to take control. Troy uses his Twist Tornado card, and the flower petals carry her tune literally on the wind. I'm sure this is some kind of music reference that I just don't get. On the topic of things I just don't get, her music shorts out the device and severely weakens Dizchord. This gives the three of them a chance to combine their weapons into a three-piece cannon, for some reason. They get a good shot on Brock, Troy and Emma morph, and they finish off the Loogies. If there's one thing this season has, it's some seriously flashy finishing moves. They each use an attack from their individual weapons before going into the Mega Blaster. They get ready to summon the Zords, but the others thank Troy and Emma. Troy always credits his sources, though, and says,
"It was all Emma's doing. Your singing made the difference."
Cue the Megazord. No headers today, just some straight-up fire.
Time to face some music, Dizchord. We're deleting you off our playlist.
But don't delete me off your playlist. In fact, you should go ahead and favorite me, like, and subscribe. Because I spent a year working on this project, and I'd like to make this my full-time job and not have it be a massive waste of time and money.
Back on the ship, Creepox is ready to go mess with the Rangers again, but Malcor says that they can't have any more mistakes, and they need to come up with a foolproof plan this time. At the juice bar, everyone tells Emma she's an amazing singer. Ernie talks about that amazing concert yesterday and says he's got a recording. Turns out Ernie is a man of taste, and instead of recording Emma, he recorded the songs the Loogies were jamming out to instead. He single-handedly empties the entire juice bar faster than a monster attack would. This episode is just weird. It's definitely a step down from the last few episodes. The big issues are that it's not really a character-focused episode. Emma solves the day, and we learn that her mother used to sing when she was 1, which implies that her mother maybe isn't around anymore. But there's no lesson informed from this, and it doesn't really do anything interesting to further her character. We wind up getting more good moments of Gia than we do with Emma this episode. I love how Gia yells at every guy to turn down their music, and then gives a cutesy, almost sarcastic
"Thank you"
to them afterwards. She also continues her second-in-command leadership that's been subtly developing throughout the season. Also, while the majority of episodes so far have had a decent reason for the Rangers going and splitting up, this one feels very arbitrary. It didn't need to be Emma, it certainly didn't need to be Troy. Anybody could have been close to the monster and been affected by the powers more than the rest. The other issue is that unpleasant sound is an inherently annoying gimmick, and therefore makes watching the episode a lot less fun. Especially when Emma and Dizchord start playing music over each other, and it just becomes a garbled mess of noise. On a more wholesome note, this episode also continues the strangely positive work environment that Malcor employs. For a genocidal planet conqueror, he does seem to genuinely care for his generals, and is smart enough to know that Creepox is the brute, while Vrock is the idea guy. It's not much, but Malcor seems to think more logically about who he sends down each week. Which makes sense, given Brock proves in this episode that he knows how to push the right buttons with Dizchord, appealing to his ego and his desire to be famous, when in the past, villains would just yell at their monsters.
With Creepox getting increasingly more fed up, it's only fitting that the next episode, Who's Crying Now, is going to be a big one for the Creepox versus Troy rivalry. Who's going to win? You know who's going to win. So let's get into episode 7.
want a power hour. You need 60 minutes a day of exercise to train like a ranger. That may seem like a lot, but every minute you spend walking, running, or playing can add up to a power hour. Learn more at PowerRangers.com.
We start with Dollar Store Bulk and Skull intimidating students in the hallway. They walk into Troy, who they tease for being the new kid. Emma and Noah watch Troy, choosing not to interfere because of him being cool as ice. And here, we get this iconic line.
Take a good look. You see any tears?
Troy is unfazed, and they back off. The bullies then find someone who looks like an actual high schooler and not just someone in their 20s pretending to be a high schooler to bully. They take his bug and start tossing it around until Troy comes over and starts crushing his hand. Troy tells them that just because they are bigger doesn't give them the right to bully other kids, or even this bug, and that everything deserves respect. The bullies leave, for now, and Troy returns the bug to the kid. Over with the insectoids, Brock notices Malcor's getting impatient, and he asks Creepox what he's going to do about the Rangers. Brock implies to Creepox that he doesn't think he's up to the challenge, what with his multiple failed attempts to defeat the Red Ranger. This gets Creepox riled up to go destroy the Rangers and prove to Brock how strong he really is. After the theme song, the bullies are back at it again in the park, terrorizing the kid and threatening to squash his bug. The bullies are interrupted, though, by a lumbering Creepox arriving onto the scene, and he plans to use those bullies as bait to lure out the Rangers. Before Creepox can strike them, the bully kid, named Howie, fights his fears and his thick New Zealand accent and tells Creepox to leave them alone.
Just because you're bigger doesn't mean you can pick on them.
What? Howie tells Creepox that he can't pick on those guys just because he's bigger than them. Creepox disagrees and feels Howie needs to be taught a lesson about the superiority of insects, which is odd given this is the same kid who's been protecting bugs the entire episode. This feels like an element of the script that's a little undercooked, that there should be a line about how humans trap bugs in containers like Howie does, to sort of sell this idea about Creepox being vengeful about humans a little more. In any case, now Howie is covering, and before Creepox can finish him off, Gia and Jake come in morph to knock Creepox down. They get Howie out of there and proceed to start the fight. They get knocked all the way from the public park to a warehouse complex, because Power Rangers. Creepox overpowers them and says some stuff about how the strong take from the weak.
That's how it's always been, and how it always will be!
Which, while I suppose is true from his point of view, doesn't really play into any of the themes this episode has going on so far. Creepox demorphs Jake and Gia and says that he's only got 3 more left to go, even though Jake and Gia aren't dead. Hell, he didn't even take their morphers, he just beat them up and left. This is supposed to be Creepox's last-ditch effort to defeat the Rangers, and yet he's still phoning it in. The other 3 are looking for them. The 3 start looking in the forest. They aren't answering their communicators, so Noah has to, in his own words,
triangulate their coordinates.
They find them at the warehouse. Gia tells them that Creepox is stronger than before, and he's rampaging through the city. With this being the most dangerous threat they've dealt with so far, Troy has Noah follow him into battle and tells Emma to stay with the other 2 and take care of them.
Emma, stay and take care of them. Noah, you're with me.
Go say teleport them safely to the command center, or even just have Emma bring them there and then meet the boys later. Nah. Seems like Troy just doesn't want her in the fight for some reason, but is cool with Noah risking his life. Before we can elaborate more on the potential guy love further, Creepox is dropping dozens of explosive attacks on the city. He is not fucking around today. Troy and Noah confront Creepox at that good old quarry. Troy realizes that Creepox has been blinded by his feud this whole time, and that's why he did all this. Creepox was cocky and arrogant before, but he claims he's not going to make that mistake again. It's time to go, so Troy and Noah morph up. The 2 Rangers put up a good fight against Creepox, but it's just not enough. Creepox is about to finish Troy off, but Noah gets in the way of the blast and uses his Defend Stream card to lessen the impact. They both demorph, and Noah is too injured by all that to go on. Troy just blatantly reads out the moral of the story.
Creepox seems to be driven entirely by rage. I can exploit that anger. I'll use that against him.
Troy morphs back up and puts up another impressive fight. Honestly, it's a shame I can't show you more of this because of copyright, but this is a really nice sequence. Troy demorphs again, but before Creepox can finish him off, Troy is able to grab his sword and block his strike. He mocks him, telling him that he has no strength and nobody left to save him. Troy hits him with another,
Take a good look. You see any tears?
And he gets back up. This is now the 3rd time he's morphed in like 5 minutes? But now, they're getting ready to finish it, and even Rock comes by to see the victor of this fight. The two have their standoff and go in for a final strike. Troy, now covered in feathers, gets the finishing blow on Creepox.
It can't be! Me, the mightiest of all insectoids, fall to a weak human like you!
Creepox lived as a hater, and now he gets to die as a hater. The others join up with Troy and go in to check on Noah. Rock belittles Creepox, saying how his victory was all but assured, but he let his anger get the better of him. Creepox grows, and the other four take their sweet-ass time morphing, 2 at a time this time. They summon the Megazord and are immediately getting blasted. Noah says that they need some more power, and Troy asks Gosei for help. Gosei just fucking does it.
You have proven to me that you are ready for a new power to be unlocked.
They unlock Ultra Gosei Great, and this lets them combine all the header sets they've earned so far into one powerful combination. They pretty decisively beat him, and then Troy makes sure to throw in a line about making sure all bullies get what's coming to them.
Okay, let's prove that all bullies, no matter how big, get what's coming to them.
Which is maybe not the best thing to be saying to your 2 to 11 demographic of children when the answer to this bully is murdering them. Creepox says they won't win the war against the insectoids, and he finally goes down.
But you won't win the war against the insectoids!
Wait a minute. Go back. What the hell was that? Right there. What the hell is that? A backpack? Geez, Gosei's giving out so many new Zords, he doesn't even announce them anymore when he does it. What, do the Rangers have a hole punch card like when they go to the Froyo stand? Earn 9 Zords, get the 10th one free? Anyway, getting back to the story.
We cut to the Rangers at the park, gloating about beating Creepox, Emma remarking about how she can finally relax a little bit. Noah and Jake are excited to celebrate, Jake being especially
celebration with a capital? Yeah, boy!
excited. At Ernie's, the Rangers see the bully, and he has come to make an announcement. But before the Rangers can let the adrenaline of their recent murder kick in, we see the bully help catch a bug on the floor, and he and Howie put it in a jar. As if the moral wasn't obvious enough already, the bully just flat out says,
no matter how small, everything deserves respect.
Ernie says that Troy is not only amazing for defeating Creepox, but also for reforming those bullies. Troy, however, is more excited to see what's coming next from the insectoids now that Creepox is gone. But Jake just tells him to relax and enjoy their big win. Which obviously, given the kind of show Power Rangers is, big wins and celebrations are certainly a rare occasion, and he should take time with his team to enjoy this brief moment, as they probably won't get the chance to celebrate again for a long time.
So yeah, if you couldn't tell, I had some issues with this episode.
But first, some positives. I did like the way that this episode built up the Troy versus Creepox storyline to its natural conclusion. They didn't keep him around longer than he needed to be there, and keeping Creepox longer than necessary would only just drag the storyline out. Besides, I have a feeling we're going to need all the extra time we can get with this season. Once again, Brock manipulates Creepox to prove himself, either to defeat the Rangers or to get Creepox killed. It really shows how cunning he is and that his loyalties are not all just to the insectoids, but only those he considers of value. Creepox was as much an ally to Brock as he was an obstacle, so him riling up Creepox to get him to lead to his ultimate destruction was a pretty big step for Brock's development, and one that I'm sure we're going to continue to see snowball as the season continues on. So the idea with this episode is that Creepox is basically an XP for bullying, and how bullying is bad. And I mean, yeah, that's a decent lesson, but it feels a little disrespectful to your character that a major villain's death is being played as an allegory for high school bullies. While I said earlier that I don't mind Creepox dying this early into the season, the issue is that it's still framed as an episodic Monster of the Week episode. Despite the fact that there are clear stakes at hand, it feels undercut by the need to wrap everything up under this whole thematic guise of a moral lesson. I understand Megaforce is going for that MMPR lesson of the day thing, but even in MMPR, they were allowed to have story-focused episodes not be bogged down by the need to have a moral. Moving on to something a little bit nicer, the extended battle between Troy and Creepox is a really cool fight, with some admittedly good background music to boot. It's compounded by a reprisal of that line from earlier in the episode.
Take a good look.
You see any tears?
As cheesy a line as it is, I do think it works in the context of showing how unfazed Troy is throughout the fight. While Creepox is blinded by his hatred, Troy keeps calm and composed. He doesn't let what's happening shake him, and that allows him to outsmart and outfight Creepox in the end. I just kinda wish Troy didn't have to so overtly spell the lesson out to the audience, because I think otherwise the theme and story behind it works well. It would also be good if Troy didn't say the whole "see any tears" line 3 times throughout the episode. Oh yeah, that's right. I didn't mention that, did I? He actually said it during the fight with Creepox while Noah's with him morphed.
So, are you ready to cry yet?
Take a good look! See any tears?
But that moment almost feels like a flub. It completely breaks the poignance of the line.
The second time he said the line, the time during the morph fight with Noah, was added in by somebody in post, and nobody bothered to fix it. The time he says it morphed basically bounces right off Creepox. He doesn't even care or bother about the phrase. It's only the third time when Troy is unmorphed does the line actually phase Creepox, so I think in the original script for this episode, Troy only said, "See any tears?" at the beginning, and then he said it during the unmorphed sword clash at the end. Because it genuinely could have been actually a really cool line, and yeah, I'm saying "see any tears." Could have been cool, but the execution was poorly handled by adding in that third bit of it that it actually ruins the entire moment.
So overall, I think this episode could have been really good, but it's bogged down by a lot of really minor mistakes and easy fixes. Find a better reason for Emma to be out of the story. Fix the overuse of "see any tears." And chill out with the moral of the day a little. I know this is a kid's show, but kids aren't that dense. They can understand lessons without being spoon-fed them.
Well, that episode was a little bit of a letdown in letting one of our main players go, but we're going to have a new player coming up soon in episode 8, Robo Night.
Put power on your plate. Just like the Power Rangers, fruits and veggies come in different colors. Each color has special nutritional power, so try to eat every color every day. Learn how at PowerRangers.com.
We start things off with the class going on a field trip to, fields. Noah and Emma pair up, and Jake goes to pair off with Gia, but his clumsiness gets him on Mr. Burley's shit list for the day, and tells everyone to be careful of their surroundings, which, for whatever reason, leads us into the classic Sideshow Bob routine. So Malcor just finds these 2 mutants hanging on Earth, chillin'. They're made from toxic waste from the Earth. With Creepox now gone, Malcor figures they're gonna need some more help in order to take over the Earth and defeat the Rangers. Rock rounds up some bomb bats and heads to Earth to persuade them. Emma and Noah are talking about how their lives have changed now that they're Rangers, not having time for their personal hobbies and interests like Noah's science and Emma's photography. Emma is curious if Noah regrets this decision to become a Ranger, but Noah says he's proud of who he's become ever since being a Ranger, and Emma is happy to have the new close friends in her life. So overall, it's been a positive experience for everybody. The 2 find an abandoned factory, which was abandoned due to too much pollution, and yet, they never actually stopped the pollution from coming out into the water, thereby making it worse that they closed the factory down instead of at least having somebody assigned there to make sure that the water doesn't get polluted. Noah takes a sample, not really sure why, maybe put it on eBay or something, I don't know. One of their classmates screams and the 2 rush over. They find a giant pair of footprints on the Earth, and Mr. Burley, realizing he's responsible for the lives of 20 children not getting murdered by a wild animal, ends a field trip there and then. Troy thinks it's possibly Bigfoot, to which Jake says that those aren't real, it must be some kind of hoax. Man, if only we had someone out here who was into researching mythological creatures to help solve this mystery. The footprint came from one of the 2 mutants who Rock was spying on in the distance. While the kids head back to school to analyze the pollution, like you do, we cut to the mutants, where they live in an abandoned factory. They both complain about how the humans don't care about the pollution and how they're going to destroy the planet. The mutants set out to destroy the humans for causing all this pollution. The mutants are soon visited by Rock, who convinces them that they all have the same goal and that they should be working together. This is shockingly easy for him to do, honestly. The results of the analysis come in, and...
I knew it. There are toxic chemicals in this sample.
I don't know what I expected.
Jake then leaves to go simp again. Jake finds Gia in the hall, and using his big brain intellect, i.e. Emma told him exactly where Gia is going and what her plans are, he talks to Gia in the hall and tells her he's going to Ernie's and says that she can come with him if he wants. This puts Gia in a good mood. Before Jake can give himself a high five, though, their communicators go off and they run off into the battle. The Rangers head out to the city, but they can't seem to find the insectoid at the location Tensu told them. They run around for a bit until they eventually find the monster, Hisser. He says that their species has no chance, and each ranger feels the need to exchange one line of platitude saying otherwise before the fight starts.
What?
No chance.
Think again.
No way!
That's not going to happen.
The two mutants from earlier make their entrance and join Hisser for some fun. The big guy stomps his foot, and Emma uses her big brain mode to connect the dots that this is their so-called Bigfoot from earlier in the episode. The mutants berate the Rangers, as it was humans just like them who closed down the factory without properly removing the chemicals. This allowed the pollution to grow, and no human ever attempted to fix this. Now, it's their time, and they're joining forces with Vrock and the Insectoids. So I guess they are trying to destroy all humans and reset the Earth to a place where no chemicals can ever pollute the planet again. That's honestly not a bad idea for a Ranger villain. Emma pleads with them, as they never knew how bad the pollution is, which was true. These kids aren't at fault for what adults did to this planet before their time. But the mutants aren't interested in listening to reason. The small guy even says how harmful these chemicals are to humans, and then he wants them to imagine how hard it must be to be made of these chemicals.
You know, I was a little bit skeptical of these mutants, how quick they were to join Vrock. But honestly, these mutants kind of have some good points. I mean, they're not right, but they definitely have some solid motivation, a morally gray sort of skew. I'm interested to see what they do with this arc. I'm curious to see if maybe them and the Rangers will have a conversation and they'll come together and meet in the middle, maybe realize that they have a common goal and ally themselves at the end. Maybe the mutants will sacrifice themselves to save the Rangers from Vrock. Who knows? That'd be a twist. I'm honestly kind of curious. Actually, let me look at the script right now and see what it says next. Alright, so it says here that the mutants are going to use their toxins to pollute the planet faster and accelerate the destruction of Earth.
Now we're gonna finish what mankind foolishly started!
What's that?
The destruction of your environment! You're creating a toxic world! We'll just speed up the process!
Are you serious? The mutants, who hate being made of pollution and want the humans to suffer for creating these toxic monstrosities, they think the best solution is to just pollute the planet more? What the hell kind of backwards logic is that? That'd be like me complaining about my laundry basket being full, and my solution is to go buy more clothes. I'm just making the problem more challenging. Let's just get back to the Rangers getting their asses kicked. Maybe this episode can redeem itself.
The mutants attack. The Rangers can't make any headway. Apparently, the more pollution created each day, the more powerful these guys become, and the humans have been indirectly making them stronger for years. Hisser surprise attacks them and blasts them with his toxins, severely weakening all the Rangers. The mutants reiterate that once the Rangers are gone, they will flood the Earth with pollution, destroying chemical plants and whatnot, killing all life on Earth. The Rangers struggle to even put up a fight at this point. Before Hisser can finish them off, something appears in the distance to help him out. This figure even shares the same emblem as they do on their helmets. He says his name is Robo Knight, protector of the environment and guardian of the Earth. He's here to destroy anything that threatens to harm the planet. Malcor and Vrock have never seen or heard of Robo Knight before, and Malcor makes sure to tell Vrock to make sure the Robo Knight's taken care of, as they can't have any more interferences with their plans. Seeing Hisser get his ass kicked by Robo Knight gives the Rangers enough strength to fight back. And also apparently works as a tied-to-go stick, because it completely cleans the toxins off the Ranger suits. The Rangers get back into the fight, and while they can't lay any damage, they're at least able to repel the mutants effectively enough for Robo Knight to handle Hisser on his own. The two other mutants need to recharge by bathing in toxic chemicals, which is really a long-winded way of saying that they retreated. Robo Knight gets bodied into the wall by Hisser, but this isn't enough to keep him down. Robo Knight uses his new morpher to summon a header for his dope gun sword, and... wait, is that Gosei's voice?
Summon Vulcan Cannon!
Before I spend another half hour dissecting why that doesn't make any sense, Robo Knight annihilates Hisser. The Rangers realize that Robo Knight uses power cards too, and they thank him for his help. Hisser grows giant and... turns to a fucking car? And Robo Knight turns into a giant lion head and becomes his own Megazord. Yeah, sure, whatever. At this point, this isn't even weird by Power Ranger standards.
You think rocks can stop me? I was buried underground for centuries.
That's a strange place to drop some lore, especially because watching these two robot cars spin around and launch each other is really funny. It reminds me of like some battle bots or something. Robo Knight blasts Hisser with a Hyper Beam, and this ends the fight. Robo Knight has to manually morph between modes, and when he enters his humanoid form, the Rangers find him. The Rangers hound him for answers, but Troy makes sure to mention that he's glad that he's on their side. He extends a hand, but he is given the cold shoulder, and walks off into the mountains. The mutants are licking their wounds about Hisser being defeated, and Rock reasons that they would have defeated the Rangers had Robo Knight not been there. The three cook up a scheme to get rid of him. Tensu is excited about the new Ranger, but Gia girl bosses her way into the command center and demands to know why Gosei never told them about Robo Knight. Gosei didn't mention it because Robo Knight had been dormant in the Earth, which the show already told us before. Apparently, Gosei made him himself centuries ago to protect the Earth, with all the qualities and traits a knight should possess. The Earth itself called on the Robo Knight to wake up. Apparently, somehow, being frozen on the Earth for centuries did not affect anything for Robo Knight other than his memory. He does not recall Gosei was his creator, and that he's meant to ally with the Power Rangers. Noah asks if he can be fixed, and Gosei humble brags about how complex and sophisticated Robo Knight is. He'll have to relearn who his allies are, and that their mission is the same. Nice of the show to just outright tell us the overarching storyline that is going to be happening. And so, the Rangers have to make a new friend. This episode, much like the pollution monsters it's about, is a mess. First, I want to discuss the positives. Robo Knight is a badass, has a cool entrance, even if it literally comes out of nowhere and has zero build-up. I love his whole kit, and perhaps it's jumping the gun, but I do really enjoy his story arc throughout this season, and this is a decent start, establishing him being separate from the core team. As for the others, you can make the argument that the field trip exchange between Emma and Noah is reflective of the current character development they've gone on. Emma's overcoming her insecurities about her friends and relationships in life. Noah's lack of confidence in him being a hero is not particularly relevant to the episode, but it does seem like there's a deliberate intention in having those two have this conversation, for as brief as it is. This episode continues the thread of Rock being the master manipulator. Dude maxed out his charisma points so hard, the mutants didn't even think about the options before agreeing to work with him. Talking about the new mutants, they suck. If these villains were perhaps written with the sense of nuance to imply they're either unhinged or deliberately ignorant to their own self-defeating nature, then perhaps you'd have an angle here. But by having these mutants be generic, laugh evil and yell types, it doesn't have that angle. These guys really do hate that they're made of pollution and want to pollute the rest of the planet so they can live in it. There was no civilian plot, or at the very least didn't connect back to anything really, besides introducing the Rangers to the pollution before the mutants. But really, it's just a big waste of potential. As I alluded to earlier, why did Mr. Burley fear the potential Bigfoot when he literally has a wall of weird for all of these mythological creatures? Look, this is pie in the sky. Maybe I'm asking too much, but isn't it weird that in this anniversary season that clearly establishes there are other Power Rangers teams out there, and conversely, other villain factions, that maybe they could have connected the mutants to an other set of villains? The ones who were created from man-made pollution, who fought robot animals that were sealed into the earth for centuries, and also fight a team of Rangers who refer to themselves as a guardian of the earth, like Robo Knight does? The fact they call them mutants makes this even more of a tease, because the Time Force villains were mutants. Time Force being the season directly before Wild Force, and there were even a subset of them who were half mutant, half org, called Mute-Orgs. Calling them orgs wouldn't have honestly changed the narrative. It'd still be a bad debut. I'd still be calling this one of the weakest episodes of the season. But it really starts to feel like the anniversary elements are being treated more like an afterthought, save for MMPR homages and references. And I guess that's fine. You know, Wild Force itself was an anniversary season in and of itself, and that saved all of its crossover elements for the annual team-ups and the 10th anniversary special Forever Red. The difference is that
Wild Force didn't plaster Forever Red footage in front of every intro and in front of several episodes itself. But I suppose this is kind of a similar situation to that. Wild Force, we're probably not even going to see them or any other Ranger teams until the end of the season anyway, so it's probably best to just ignore it and continue forward with our story. So let's get to it in Episode 9, Prince Taste Night.
Do you want to be a Power Ranger? Remember to put the Power Rangers' in-power value of confidence in action every day. You will believe in yourself and have the understanding that you can stand up to your biggest challenges.
So we start the episode with the teen talking about how awesome Robo Knight is, and Gia asks Troy what he thinks, to which we get a flashback to another one of Troy's dreams about the legendary battle.
God damn it, what did I just say? I said we're moving on from the fan service.
Although, I suppose this time it actually serves a purpose. Troy says that he saw Robo Knight in the dream, but he couldn't tell whose side he was on. Which is bullshit. We literally see Robo Knight and the Rangers charge towards the enemy together. Was there even a question that Robo Knight wouldn't fight alongside them to save the Earth, even if he's not officially part of the team? Regardless, I do appreciate them using the legendary battle footage for something, even if it's kind of muddled in its execution. Up on the ship, Malcor wants Robo Knight eliminated, but Brock reasons that he'd be much more valuable on their side. Brock, their cunning tactician, realizes that verbal persuasion isn't going to work this time, but what is going to work will be violence, then persuasion. Brock should really get into daytime relationship advice shows.
Did you call for my services?
I have a special mission that requires your particular skills.
Was that a reference to the movie Taken?
What I do have are a very particular set of skills.
What he did tell Psychotic, not Psychotic, was that he needs to drain Robo Knight of his energy, and then they can reprogram him to serve the insectoids. We cut to the amusement park with the gay samurai music playing in the background.
Believe it, baby, I'm back! And I'm ready for some action.
And I think that the footage of the roller coaster is even lifted from Samurai. With that designated leisure activity of the episode, the Rangers are called away and they morph. What's that, 4 minutes into the episode and we already have the teens morphing? I mean, I admit the Robo Knight storyline is perhaps more important than whatever's going on at the juice bar, but it just seems a little disjointed to give so little time to the main cast. Hopefully this is just a one-off, again, due to the higher stakes of the battle for control of Robo Knight that we've got going on. The Rangers show up at the theme park, but are then joined by Robo Knight. The Rangers are struggling, but together they can do it.
He's tough, but together we can take him.
I will handle it alone.
Ha!
Robo Knight is able to effortlessly dodge the attacks, but doing so causes one of the blasts to head towards civilians. The Rangers have to save these people from getting caught in the crossfire. This naturally gets them pissed at Robo Knight, as he's solely focused on completing his mission, however. Jake has to save another group of civilians before they get hit by a stray blast too. Robo Knight gets ready for his finisher, but before he can fire, Psychotic tosses an energy tick, as Robo Knight calls it, and is sucked away from the battle. Brock shows up to gloat about his victory, before escaping.
Yes! Our plan succeeded! Goodbye, fools!
Back at the command center, Troy is pissed that they lost Robo Knight, and insists that Gosei and Tensu help find him. Jake, back on his robophobia bullshit, says that Brock can keep him, since Robo Knight doesn't seem to care about protecting the people. Gosei reaffirms that Robo Knight only wants to protect the planet, not the people on it, and that it is their duty to make him understand why he should protect humans too. Troy refuses to give up on anyone fighting for the Earth, and they rush off to find him. Robo Knight finds himself awake in a cage, realizing he's been captured by Vrock and Psychotic. Vrock has his morpher, and he explains to Robo Knight that he has only half of his power left. Any resistance or attempts to break out will zap his energy, and it's going to power up the tick sitting atop the cage. Brock even twists the knife a little by saying,
And the Rangers won't help you. They saw how you endangered humans, and since you don't care about them, they won't care about you.
However, to be safe, he does send Psychotic back out to keep the Rangers busy. The teens look around the city for Robo Knight to no avail. Psychotic goes on a tour of the town and starts disabling all kinds of electronics. That wicked monster even steals the energy from Ernie's blender and Mr. Burley's toaster.
No! I want my perfect sandwich!
While Psychotic is charging up, Robo Knight is powering down. He's had almost half of his power drained by the cage. Brock is impressed with his resolve to fight, despite his dwindling power. Once again, he tells Robo Knight that the Rangers aren't coming, only for Troy to show up right behind him. He demands Robo Knight be set free, and he tells Brock that humans never abandon their friends, which resonates with Robo Knight. Brock sees no reason to be afraid, as Troy isn't strong enough to defeat Brock alone, and Robo Knight's too weak to do anything now. Troy says that he's never alone, his friends are always with him, and he suits up. Troy and Brock begin their fight, while the other four find Psychotic in the city. He sends in the Loogies to stall for time, and with nothing more than a head tilt, Gia girl bosses the others to charge into battle. They realize what's going on, and they need to get to Robo Knight fast. This motivates them to team up, and not morph. I mean, it's a cool fight, some great character moments, they even trick the Loogies into taking each other out, but if you're in a rush, just morph and finish the damn fight.
Let's go find our teammates.
Right.
Anyway, Psychotic teleports to where Brock is to tell him the Rangers are occupied. Only for the Rangers to literally show up 5 seconds later.
I thought you took care of them! Well, I...
Robo Knight is surprised to see them, and he tries to break out so he can resume the fight. Jake and Gia come over to him, and while Jake initially expresses irritation with Robo Knight, they do explain they're here to save him. Robo Knight considers this illogical, however, that they should focus on the mission.
We're all on the same team! We're all trying to save the Earth!
Team?
It's simple. We're the good guys and they're the bad guys.
While Robo Knight ponders this, Jake tries to free him, but Brock stops him.
Now you can witness the end of the Power Rangers!
The Rangers are down for the count, but they still have one thing that Brock doesn't have. Platitudes. Platitudes upon platitudes of how great Earth and the humans are and how they can overcome anything.
As long as we're united, there's always hope!
The world is counting on us! We will find a way to defeat you!
Troy saying that they will find a way to defeat Brock resonates with Robo Knight. Again. And Robo Knight figures out a way to hack the cell and overload it.
I will not let you destroy my world!
And in Super Saiyan style, he's ready to kick some ass. Robo Knight lays a smackdown on Brock and Psychotic, and goes in for the finisher. Brock gets tossed around, but this destroys Psychotic, and he grows big like usual. The Rangers get ready to summon their Zords, but Robo Knight tells them to stand down.
Time for the Megazord!
No! I will handle this!
Robo Knight unlocks some new cards, the Sky and Sea Knight brothers. This allows his lion form to form the Gosei Grand Megazord. Like any new Megazord debut, Gosei Grand is able to walk through the monster like he's nothing. This time with color commentary from the Rangers.
Your environmental threat will be removed forever.
Malkor sees the fight, and he berates Brock for his failure. But once again, being the universe's best evil boss, he acknowledges that the plan wasn't the problem, but the execution. Due to this, they now have an even bigger challenge with Robo Knight joining the Rangers.
A problem you must solve!
The Rangers find Robo Knight, chilling on the roof, and they thank him for his help. Troy says that if he joins them, they can accomplish a lot together. Robo Knight declines, but he tells them that he must defeat
the bad guys,
which Jake remembers Gia saying earlier. They realize that Robo Knight is slowly starting to learn from them, and that maybe one day he'll be able to join them on his own. Before the ego-stroking of the Rangers can continue, however, Emma suggests that they go to Ernie's to celebrate.
Oh, and Jake, you're buying.
Wait, what? Come on, guys!
So that episode was kinda good, actually. It suffered some pacing problems, and the Rangers needed to stop talking so much, but the general idea of the episode is solid. Robo Knight didn't want to join the team, and his idea of protecting the Earth is different than theirs. The Rangers proved the value of their teamwork to him, and this gave Robo Knight the inner strength he needed to win. He's not on their side, but he's beginning to have his preconceived notions shattered by being around the team. Robo Knight even said to the Rangers,
"Working together is good for humans, but I work alone."
And the Rangers even acknowledge that he's still learning. Perhaps a little on the nose for an adult, but I do appreciate that the conflict isn't just over in 2 episodes, and that this storyline will have the chance to continue further.
Much like Robo Knight is having his worldview changed, I'm beginning to wonder myself, was I wrong about this season? While it's certainly not perfect so far, I've been enjoying the episodes more than I haven't. Sure, the characters are archetypes, the villains aren't very complex, but there hasn't been anything overtly offensive or aggravating. At best, it's been kind of enjoyable, and at worst, stupid Mighty Morphin style popcorn fluff. I'm honestly kind of excited to see where we're going to go with the Robo Knight storyline. And with all that said, let's get into episode 10,
Man versus Machine. That's kind of weird. Sorry about that. Let's... Man versus Machine. Come on, I said Man versus Machine.
That's great, Noah. I can't believe the website's online so fast.
Oh, believe
So right,
it,
disc.
it's our own social networking site. The whole...
Come on, just do it. Man versus Machine. Come on, just do it already.
I can't believe how awesome Robo was.
I hope they run on biofuel.
No, Emma. They run on us. Our courage, our strength. That's what gives them power.
Royal jelly venom will make all humans my loyal servants. United we stand, together we fall.
Wait, where am I?
Hello, Daniel.
Who are you? And what am I doing here?
You can call me Nick. Let's just say you're going on a little bit of a hiatus.
What? For how long?
About 5 months.
5 months?
Yeah, give or take, I'll give you some leeway.
Wait a minute. Is this a sketch? No way. I'm not doing any of this nostalgia critic crap. I'm out of here. Oh, no. You know, at least you guys have Timecodes. So, Nick, what's a guy got to do to keep busy around here?
Well, you did say you were going to review all of Megaforce, so I figured we'd go with something smaller to start you off with.
3DS? But why?
Hey man, you asked me for something to do. You can either watch reruns for the next 5 months or you can play the damn game. I think you're going to like what's in there.
Alright. Give it a shot. How bad can it be?
So we start the game off, and...
Kyoryuger? This isn't Power Rangers? What the hell, Nick?
Oops. My bad. Here you go.
So wait, this Power Rangers Megaforce game is just a reskin of a Super Sentai game?
Yup, that's exactly what they did. They took a Sentai game, changed the graphics and dialogue, and just released it in the US. The gameplay, the level design, the Megazord battles, the dialogue options between the Rangers, any music that isn't a song from the original show is the exact same. Even using the barcodes off of the toys to get power-ups and the camera functionality is the exact same.
You know, I know Power Rangers takes its footage from a Japanese TV show, but I didn't think the game was going to do the same thing. Which in turn makes this the perfect license game. It takes something from Japan and calls it its own. Well, besides being a reskin of an already existing game, how is it?
Well, like a large chunk of Power Rangers games, this is a 2.5D beat-em-up. Your Ranger has two main attacks, a melee weapon and a blaster. The melee weapon feels very snappy and are genuinely fun to use when jumping in the air. The blasters are weak, but good for range and handling enemies when you're low on health. Now, to be fair, you do technically have a third method of attack. You can also use the power cards that you unlock throughout the game to do special attacks in battle. Most of these, however, are just context-sensitive ways to get past roadblocks that just slow down the pace, what with having to use the touchscreen to select them, and having to watch the morpher animation every single time. Another element to the gameplay is that you can actually switch between all 5 Rangers almost any time during the game. Each of the Rangers plays mostly the same.
there are a few key differences between them. Troy's an all-arounder, Noah has range so he can shoot during his melee combo, Jake can shred bosses to pieces with his axe, Emma is frankly required for certain platforming segments due to her insane jumping height, and Gia... well, Gia's there if the other four are low on health. The gameplay of the main stages is a linear affair, with you just trying to reach the end of each level. These levels are broken up into 3 main mission types: battling enemies in a walled-off room, either by defeating a set number of loogies or surviving the time limit. Sometimes they will force you to use a specific ranger, but it really doesn't change anything that much, considering they all play very similar. When you aren't doing that, you're collecting all the items in a level, like the aforementioned power cards or the Gosei coins, which as far as I can tell do nothing besides go towards in-game achievements. The third mission style is that occasionally you'll have to find a switch to hit to open a gate. In between those segments, there's some little areas of breathing room to fight enemies, do some light platforming, and find a few secrets. Some of these secrets require having certain power cards you obtain later in the game to open, by the way. Speaking of cards, I should probably mention the story. Gosei contacts you, the player, and asks you for your help to stop Vrock and his minions, which consists of Creepox, Bluefur, UFO, someone named No Joke, who we'll see later in the show, and Metal Alice. Who the hell is Metal Alice? I guess she's a leftover from this being a Kyoryuger game or something. They couldn't even take the Sentai character out of the Power Rangers? Another weird leftover from Kyoryuger is that you get to talk to each of the Rangers after every level. They ask you different questions, and you have to answer them correctly. But sometimes, they aren't even questions with right or wrong answers. Sometimes, they're just arbitrary. Sometimes, they don't even make sense. There's a question where Noah asks you if Robo Knight or Troy is cool, and you have to answer Troy. If you answer Robo Knight, you don't get the little bonus. But to be honest, I actually have no idea what this even does. If it does anything, it's so small of a difference, I can't even tell. You know, speaking of Noah, another question asks you about their Zords, and Noah talks about his Snake Zord? The characterization has been weird in this game. I think somehow Noah and Jake's character bios got switched, because Noah kinda acts like Jake, being a bit of a dunce, and Jake seemingly flirts with Emma instead of Gia, which, to be fair, Noah doesn't do that in the show either, but he certainly doesn't flirt with Gia. Or maybe they're somehow acting like the Kyoryugers. It must be all this samba music playing in the background. Where was I going with all this anyways? Oh yeah. This feature is just a weird waste of time and adds nothing to the experience. Anyways, so UFO is out capturing humans for an experiment, like he did in the actual episode. We later learn that they're collecting humans to power up the Aurora box, and that somehow Vrock also managed to scatter all of the Rangers' power cards, which is why you have to collect them throughout the game. Around the third world, things start picking up with the story. We get to play as Robo Knight now, and he's a Giga Chad. He has the best jump, does the most damage, and has the fastest player speed. The trade-off being that since he's the only ranger in his stages, you only get 1 health bar to use before you die. He's also only playable in his own separate stages, so you can't bring him back to old levels that you may have had difficulty with. With Robo Knight brings some new abilities. The first thing you can do is activate a power-up form. You may have noticed these yellow card pickups that haven't done anything so far. Now, you can push a button, and you'll give Robo Knight some Super Saiyan aura. And now, you move even faster and hit even harder! His combo even ends with a giant FU laser. The other thing that has been added is now that when you attack, you fill in the Megaforce logo on the touchscreen. And when you get it full, you get...
Retribution!
Epic. Once you finish that level, the Megaforce Rangers can now do this as well, except they get this big-ass gold armor with a gumball machine staff. Can't say I'm surprised, though. This was the era of team power-ups. Alright, full transparency. When I played this game to record footage, I thought I was doing something wrong because I was trying to activate the power-up, and it just wasn't working. But I knew it was in the first level. And the reason for that is I was confusing Megaforce with Kyoryuger. Now, by this point, you may have noticed that some of the weird dialogue quirks in this game. Like the fact that these characters won't shut up.
Let's do it carefully. Break it to see what's inside.
I bet we can break this.
Break it, put me what's inside.
Good work. I bet we can break this.
The game seems to be programmed to have characters say one of a few canned lines of dialogue whenever they reach a certain part of the stage. It seems tied to the horizontal axis, and I can prove it, because on one of the levels, I was performing a survive 60 seconds mission. I didn't feel like fighting the enemies, so I just kept jumping around the level. And so, I kept hearing the same lines of dialogue over and over and over and over and over and over and over. I can hear birds, and
break it and see what's inside.
Are burned into my skull forever. Moving on a little, we get to Chapter 4. Here, Robo Knight is spying on Vrock and his henchmen on... I guess this is another planet. Or the polar ice caps, I don't know. Vrock has a power card and is going to use that to create a doomsday weapon by combining it with the Aurora box. Now, what's really weird, besides the fact that we now suddenly have an ice level near the end of the game, is that a couple of these chapters have no cutscenes whatsoever. Levels 4-3 through 4-5 just do not have any narrative whatsoever. No mid-level dialogue. They don't even have the little chat with the rangers that you do when the level's over. Was the game rushed? Or was this how it was in Kyoryuger? I'm not gonna play to find out.
I mean, I guess it doesn't really even matter if Kyoryuger was rushed, but isn't it funny that they had more time to work on Megaforce because they already had a basically complete game, and yet it still feels like a rush job?
Alright. We get to the end of this chapter, and we defeat Bloofer. And apparently Vrock used the Aurora box to make the ice planet?
So we're gearing up for the final world now. World 4 was a little bit of a mess, but maybe they're just saving all the good stuff for the end. Let's hope that Megaforce ends on a high note.
So, the first two levels are just battle rooms. No real level design to speak of. 5-3 is literally just a boss rush against the monsters of the week. 5-4 is a boss fight against Vrock, and Robo Knight blasts the fuck out of him. 5-5, the final standard level of the game, is the exact same level as 5-4. The exact same. With just another boss fight against Vrock.
The game just gave up. Megaforce actually started out with a decent story and okay pacing, but in order to meet a corporate deadline, it rushed itself out, and you can see it falling apart at the seams. Which is a shame, because honestly, once the game got going, it was actually having a lot of charm to itself. By the second or third world, I was starting to have a little bit of fun with it. But the last third is just nothing. Fighting for fighting's sake. Alright, let's just get this over with.
So on the final level, the weapon Vrock was building is an exact replica of the Gosei Great Megazord? On a writing side, this is actually a creative idea. On a game development side, this just seems like they were too lazy to create a Megazord boss battle where you actually fight Vrock. During this, you also gain the ability to combine the two Megazords together, which kind of makes this whole fight seem a little less cool when you're just towering over Vrock. Despite all my complaining, this may be the only Megazord battle in the game where you actually have to try to win. So you win, and you beat Vrock. We go back to the command center, we have a celebration, and the Rangers each thank you for helping them win. And I guess you un-isekai back into the real world? And that's the end of the game. But we aren't done quite yet. There's a system in the game where you can scan in the Megaforce trading cards to get some stat boosts. I guess it's cool to reward players for collecting the cards, and the game does come with an exclusive card, which I don't have anymore. You can also take some selfies using the world's second grainiest portable camera, the first being the Nintendo DSi itself. But I mean, I guess when you are a kid, it can be a fun novelty. At least it's something. There's also some bonus levels you can unlock, which are either combat rooms or shorter than normal levels. Not much to say. From the beginning, there is a hard mode you can play through, although it's not the kind of hard mode that adds meaningful challenge, just the kind that takes more damage from enemies. Finally, something actually cool is that you can unlock the costumes of the original Mighty Morphin Power Rangers after beating the game. It doesn't change the cutscenes or the voice acting, it doesn't even change the character portraits used mid-stage. It does do a good job of highlighting how similar Megaforce's Ranger designs are to Mighty Morphin. It's like the series was made to be an MMPR tribute.
Alright, that's it. I'm done with this crap. What a letdown. I tricked myself into thinking it was getting better, but it was actually just getting worse. But hey, at least I managed to kill some time while I'm here.
Yeah, 5 hours is about right for a licensed kid game.
5 hours? I've only been playing this for 5 hours?
Yep. Glad I hope passing time.
Let me show you how much I appreciate it.
Yeah, we're not doing this, angry nerd.
Okay. Okay, so if I can only watch Power Rangers, can I at least pick which Power Rangers I get to watch?
Yeah, I don't see why not. Knock yourself out.
You know, I could watch my favorite season of Power Rangers RPM, but honestly, that doesn't really feel like a fair comparison. I should probably look at something that's a little more... I could watch Samurai. You know, Samurai and Megaforce were made under very similar circumstances, being the first 2 seasons of the Neo-Saban Power Rangers era. You know what? Let's give that a shot. Let's see how it is. Alright, now I know what I'm up against.
It's not really fair to compare Megaforce to a show made by an entirely different production crew, so let's see how it compares to its contemporary, Power Rangers Samurai. In order to keep things fair, I decided to only watch the first 9 episodes of Samurai, up to I've Got a Spell on Blue, to keep it even with where we are in Megaforce. Now, there is a strange caveat with that, but we'll address it a bit later. For a quick recap, Power Rangers Samurai premiered in 2011 on Nickelodeon, and was the first season of what's been dubbed the Neo-Saban Era. It was huge for Nickelodeon. They had Happy Meal toys, Macy's Day Parades, Alex Hartman, aka the Red Samurai Ranger, was even on the Nickelodeon game show Figure It Out. They were rolled out the orange carpet by Nickelodeon. They even gave them a TV movie, Clash of the Red Rangers, featuring my man Scott, Ranger Red from Power Rangers RPM. Samurai, however, had some issues behind the scenes. The acquisition from Disney to Saban happened in the middle of 2010, during which time Disney was airing modified episodes of MMPR called MMPR Reversioned. While we were busy seeing Green with Evil again, and Saban was busy getting their baby back from Disney, Bandai was already planning on making Power Rangers toys based off the Super Sentai, whether or not there was a show on TV. That's where those somewhat cursed MMPR Ranger heads on the Shinkenger bodies came from. Once Saban did acquire the show, the plan was to debut Samurai in the first quarter of 2011, just in time for the new fiscal year. This meant they had half a year to cast, film, produce, and bring forth to market a brand new show. That is really not enough time to make a show. So something you'll notice about Samurai is a distinct credit for original Japanese script written by. This is because in order to get the show done, they had to more or less just translate the scripts from Shinkenger one-to-one, making only minimal changes to localize it for Western audiences. Now, they somehow managed to do this, and do it well enough to capture new audiences. But it wasn't without some sacrifices. Now, when I criticize acting, I know that it is mostly an indictment on the directors, who are the ones who need to coach the actors on what to do and how to do it. But frankly, the writing and acting in Samurai is terrible.
I must not fail. I am the Red Ranger.
Hey, there she is.
Samurai, we have a battle to fight.
I want to go after Red Ranger.
I won't go back without the swordfish sword. Did someone order the fish?
Now, I'm not calling Megaforce Oscar-worthy. And look, Troy has had bad lines, but it's dramatically improved overall in Megaforce. Lines the characters say generally feel more natural. The Megaforce kids feel like real people, to a degree. The Samurai Rangers always feel like they're reading dialogue that belongs to another person, which, to be fair, they are. Now, to make up for this, Samurai goes crazy on the cinematography. In many ways, this is visually the best Power Rangers has ever looked. Of course, switching to HD naturally is going to make Power Rangers look better than most of the Disney-era seasons, but the color, the use of unique camera angles, the variety in filming locations, Samurai looks like a show with a budget. Comparatively, Megaforce is very flat cinematography. Shots don't do a whole lot to impress. They get the job done, and they do what they need to do, but nothing really more than that. Combine that with the sterile sets like the juice bar, the school, and the command center, it just feels lifeless and boring to look at. Even things like the morphing sequence are much more dynamic in Samurai, bolstered by a much punchier soundtrack. Samurai has more of a fun atmosphere to its music, and it revels in enjoying how cool it is. Megaforce is here to do its thing, get the job done, and go home. So, Samurai can be best summed up as being style but no substance. So, I guess that makes Megaforce substance but no style? Now, moving on to the next point, I'd like to talk about the characters, and more specifically, how they go through the stories of these episodes. Somehow, these shows have the complete opposite way that the Rangers convey the moral of the day to their audience. In the case of Samurai, the Samurai Rangers come across as very flawed characters, but that is used as a method for them to grow throughout the season. The Samurai Rangers regularly have a personal conflict that they need to learn something in order to overcome it. The Team Unites, for example, is about Mike feeling like he can take the Nihilok on his own and going off without the team. It's only after he gets saved by Jaden from the Nihilok that he realizes he can't do it himself. Beyond that, the Rangers are regularly shown to have flaws that prevent them from being the best they can, with Jaden being too burdened with the samurai lifestyle to just enjoy a day off, like Emily being a klutz and a doormat, Mia being oblivious to her bad cooking, Mike being a goof-off, and Kevin being an ass-kisser. Even Bulk and Spike have a story arc we see develop over these episodes of them learning to become samurai, which we see develop as they go from being afraid to even get near the monsters early on, to at least making some kind of attempt to fight back by episode 9. I mean, they don't factor into the overarching story at all, but at least their escapades have some growth, and I guess Mentor G learns to stop being as much of a tool. Maybe. On the other side of the coin, we have the Megaforce Rangers, who've proven themselves to Gosei and have been chosen for their excellency. And in spite of how bland the Rangers can come across at times, there's a clear sense that these kids do have what it takes to be Rangers, both mentally and physically. In Stranger Ranger, the conflict is not from the Rangers, but an outside force in Pat the NES Punk pretending to be a Ranger, and Troy having to teach him a lesson about being honest. In Harmony and Dizchord, the girls have a fight, but only because the monster put a spell on them. The boys have to remind the girls how strong their friendship is. Who's Crying Now, the infamous See Any Tears line, showing Troy's fearlessness and his nobility to defend those weaker than him from bullies. These Rangers have already grown as people, and that's why they've been chosen as Rangers by Gosei. They still have much as people to learn, but they have the maturity and life experience to help others. And, well, Ernie, Mr. Burley, Gosei, and Tensu don't have much development because they aren't characters. They are props. We get Mr. Burley on set, have him fall over something. We got Ernie, have him spill some shit. The kids will love it. Outside the first episode, I can't even think of a single line of dialogue that Tensu and Gosei said to the Rangers besides, blah blah blah, new card. So in that regard, you can say the Samurai Rangers are characters developing, because the Rangers are still learning and haven't become full-fledged Rangers in and of themselves, despite spending their entire lives training and preparing for this job. And as for Megaforce, we can say that these are characters developed, as, obviously, the Megaforce Rangers are often the ones teaching the lessons, not learning them. Another key difference between these shows is something I'll call variety versus consistency. Megaforce is a season which has very consistent settings. We've got the school, we've got the command center, and we've got the juice bar in the mall. That's mostly it. And as far as what the cast does, there's a pretty rigid format. There isn't a lot of room for a variety of scenarios. The Rangers are living their lives, a monster comes to attack, and the Rangers will try to stop them. As for Samurai, they really get the most of New Zealand and go all over to get the most of their filming locations. They go into the actual city quite often, and not just the same locations. All the Samurai Rangers have a couple locations they regularly frequent from their past, like the arcade for Mike and the swimming area for Kevin. Plots tend to also send the Rangers to much more varied locations. They get the day off, they go to the amusement park. A monster is following a kid, they go to the kid's neighborhood. Kevin spends an entire episode at the ocean trying to snag the swordfish sword. This gives the episodes diversity and makes them feel a little fresher. On that note, Samurai plots feel like the world is expanding when revelations are made. We hear about new power discs that were lost. We learn about a mysterious man named Decker. We see Jaden's father. Oh, you know what? Put that on there too. Samurai has family and friends, and Megaforce does not have family and friends. Hell, Bulk mentioning he has a history with the Power Rangers is more connected to the larger universe than Troy's dreams ever come across. Because in Megaforce, nothing really is learned or expanded on organically. New cards make new powers, but there's no mythos to it. No grandeur, just new product. So for Samurai, we can say it's more of a show about world building, as the world is slowly unraveling as we learn more about the history of the Samurai Rangers, the powers, and the Nylok. Meanwhile, Megaforce is more a show about maintaining the status quo, as not a lot changes between episodes, and we mostly reset at the end of the episode. I guess that naturally brings us to a major point of contention towards Megaforce. It just has no stakes compared to Samurai. In a typical episode of Megaforce, a conflict is introduced, usually regarding another student or a high school issue like dating or bullies. The monster attacks, the Rangers might get a new Zord tangentially related to the moral of the story, and then, at the end of the episode, the Rangers laugh and the problem's over. Compare that to an episode of Samurai, where the Rangers are usually training and have to put themselves in the line of danger in order to defeat the Nylok, such as staging a fake wedding to be used as bait, or Jaden need to put his body through physical training to use the beetle disc, or Kevin having to fish the Swordfish Zord out of the ocean itself. These are conflicts the Rangers have to solve the problem to, sometimes without a clear answer. Megaforce does not have that form of tension. The Rangers may now need to have Robo Knight join their team, but the implication of the stakes is fairly low. If he doesn't join, he's still fighting the bad guys. Otherwise, they don't have to do anything. And despite what Gosei says, they aren't really earning these new powers they acquire. They just get them handed out when the plot needs them. Let me put it to you like this. If Jaden didn't unlock the Beetle Disc in Samurai, the Rangers would have lost. If Troy didn't defeat his opponent, Gosei would just hand him the power he needs to defeat him. And trust me, Gosei has way more powers to hand out than we've seen so far. So, let's give Samurai credit for having genuine stakes, whereas Megaforce is more or less a fresh start every time. Up until now, I'd like to think I've been pretty fair to both shows. But in this last point, Samurai clearly excels where Megaforce flounders. And it's technically not even the show's fault. One of the biggest sins the show commits is, you got to watch 5 more episodes before the hiatus in Samurai than you did with Megaforce. For Power Rangers Samurai, you got to watch episodes 3 through 16 before the show got put on its hiatus. For those of you asking where were episodes 1 and 2? Well, for whatever reason, Nickelodeon decided to save them for a special premiere at the end of the season. My guess is that Nick wasn't confident in Power Rangers performing well and didn't feel comfortable giving them a double-length time slot. So, they decided to take the first 2 episodes, which are effectively a 2-part story, push them to the end as a special, and move forward the first non-double part episode, episode 3, The Teen Unites, and make that the series premiere. Whereas, obviously with Megaforce, we only got 9 episodes before their hiatus. And in those extra episodes of Samurai, they were able to show the Gold Ranger, his Zords, new Zord configurations, and also a more fleshed out rivalry between Jaden and his rival, Decker. A comfortable amount of content to have on repeat before the show goes on its break. Before Megaforce's hiatus, we only just got our 6th Ranger introduced, and he hasn't even joined the team formally yet. Also, his Zord only just got introduced, no combination yet. Even though the toys can combine, it's just not enough content to last 5 whole months on repeat. And so with that, we end off our tally with Samurai having 14 episodes and Megaforce having 9 episodes before their hiatus. Overall, Megaforce makes clear improvements over Samurai in terms of being more structurally sound and a better polished program. But with that structure, it lacks a lot of the same ambition and scope that Samurai was able to bring. We can only hope that as Megaforce continues, it'll go on to take these improvements and push forward with them to become a show that's remembered years after it's over and is truly as legendary as the history it's been celebrating.
Not bad, Daniel.
Nick! God, how long has it been now?
You know you've just been writing on a whiteboard, right? It's been like 20 minutes. Most of that was you just talking to yourself.
God, isn't there anything else I could do? Anything Megaforce related I can use to kill some time?
I do have some literature for you.
Comic books? I mean, can't be as bad as the video games, right? Hello, and welcome to the Exposition Table, where bad comics bore. Today, we're going to be talking about the first two Power Rangers Megaforce comics made by Paper Cuts, Volume 3 and Volume 4. Wait, 3 and 4?
So here's a funny story. Paper Cuts, established in 2005, began producing graphic novels for kids, a fairly sparse space in the graphic novel market at the time. They started out doing graphic novels based on Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, and more. When Paper Cuts acquired the license to do Power Rangers comics in 2012, they started off with 2 issues of comics about Super Samurai. Those 2 issues, named Memory Short and Terrible Toys, were volumes 1 and 2 respectively. For whatever reason, they lumped the 2 series into one numbering system, and that's why Megaforce is volumes 3 and 4. And what's even funnier is that after Megaforce, they actually started a new comic line based on Mighty Morphin, but that began a fresh numbering system, leaving these Megaforce issues as a bizarre metal child of the Samurai and MMPR books.
Well, that's just a number on the cover, though. Is the actual book any good? Well, let's find out. In Volume 3, Panic at the Parade.
The main story, Panic at the Parade, starts with the 100-year anniversary of the town, which I don't think I've said the name of until now. The name of the town is Harwood County. Harwood County. A little boy asks Emma for some change, and she gives him some. Gia wonders if she is too trustworthy. Gia points out the boy grifting another man for money, and Emma is let down. Emma questions how trust can be a bad thing, but Gia says it's only bad if you trust the wrong person. Vrock is spying from the alley like a little goblin, and is randomly playing frisbee with a manhole cover. Vrock finds it weird how humans celebrate anniversaries with confetti. He finds humans deploying waste to be something useful in taking over the world today. Vrock returns to the insectoid ship, where he speaks to Malcor and Creepox, so I guess when this comic released, Creepox was still alive. Vrock wants to use something called the Deceptor. Creepox decides to go down to Earth with Loogies as well. Malcor orders some new monster called Flage to use the Deceptor on Vrock, and it turns him into... Oh, damn. I think human Vrock is about to have me acting up. Oh my god. So the Insectoid's new tech ironically has a few bugs to work out, and the Deceptor isn't finalized. It'll glitch out and occasionally turn Vrock back into his monster form. At Ernie's, Emma is contemplating if Gia was right about her being too trusting. She looks at some random guy in the juice bar and wonders if she can trust him. Within a minute of being at the juice bar, Brock's disguise has already malfunctioned and Emma recognizes him. However, it wasn't a total loss, as because she's in public, Emma can't morph, and the two are to stand still and have the ability to have a talk for once. Brock tells Emma that the parade is going to be attacked, but the Rangers can handle it. However, if he joins the fight, then it's going to become an all-out war. He wagers her a game. Wait 10 minutes before calling the Rangers. If she calls them early, Vrock is going to start an all-out attack. He asks that she trust him. At the parade, the other 4 are enjoying the festivities when Creepox and the Loogies attack. Troy saves a child, and then the Rangers head into an alley to morph and begin fighting back. Emma tries to persuade Vrock on the notion that the insectoids would benefit from being in harmony with humans, to which Vrock says that insects are already perfect, and to keep trying, with only 6 minutes left. The Rangers summon their weapons, and before Creepox can act on his hate boner for Troy, the confetti cannons go off and everyone is distracted. That manhole Vrock threw earlier is now activated, and it's revealed that it was actually another monster, Waistaro. The monster is a giant, so the Rangers can't damage it. Emma, still trying to convince Vrock to spare the humans, says that the Rangers will defeat him if he doesn't surrender. Vrock then maniacally cackles, saying that the 10 minutes was to give Waistaro time to fully power up, and that everyone in the city will be destroyed, including the other Rangers. Waistaro is in fact so powerful that it caused a beam to come down in Ernie's brain freeze, and it pins Vrock to the ground. Gosei tells the Rangers that Waistaro has gone from taking his energy from trash and waste, and is now just taking it from the Earth itself. He also tells Tensu to shut up when he tries to say hi to the Rangers. Emma gets ready to leave, but Vrock wants to tell her Waistaro's weakness. She questions how she can trust him after all this time, and he explains that Waistaro is too powerful, and he can't conquer a planet if it's already destroyed. Emma questions if this will make Waistaro even stronger, and Vrock says, "You don't. But unless you believe me, we are all doomed." Emma makes it to the battleground and joins her team. She asks him to give her a boost, all while the narrator expresses Emma's concerns if trusting Vrock is even the right maneuver. She gets on his back and starts playing Donkey Konga on his head. This staggers him, and Emma remarks how, for once, Vrock told the truth. The Zombats are called in, but before Emma can doubt herself again, Gosei explains that her maneuver did weaken Westaro enough that he can be defeated now. They call in the Zords, form the Megazord. They beat Westaro, and when the teens go back to Ernie's, Vrock is gone. The kids clean up the town. Emma thinks that her trust almost destroyed the world, but Gia reaffirms her that Emma's trust saved them. The Grifter kid comes back and gives Emma her money back. He only wanted the money to get him and his sister back home. And so that story comes to an end. The next story is called Game On. Being an anniversary season, this is obviously a reference to the Power Rangers Dino Thunder episode of the same name, in which Ethan gets transported into a video game and meets a wizard named Beldorf who has a No Gamers Allowed sign and uses magic to remove Tommy's mouth. Wait, what was I talking about again? Oh yeah, Gia, Emma, and Troy are training in the woods. Gia is confused why Jake and Noah would pass up training for a video game convention. Emma says that they've all worked hard and need a break, and Troy, very much in character for him, is surprised someone would pass up the real thing for a game. Jake and Noah go to the con with Mr. Burley as a chaperone, I guess. I wish my school had field trips to a local video game convention. Noah says that he should be studying instead of being here, and even one of his teachers tells him to lighten up and have some fun. Wait, does that mean that Gia, Emma, and Troy are skipping school? Here at this video game convention, let's run down the list of all of the copyright-free bootleg characters. Bootleg Pac-Man, Bootleg Sonic, a Cammy Chun-Li hybrid, the Dead Space guy, Ridley, Kamen Rider Amazon, and I'm pretty sure that's an Ava unit, as well as booth babes of Nico, Robin, and Nami, and the copyright-free Scooby-Doo gang. The background is also definitely the Mushroom Kingdom. Mr. Burley starts owning kids with his sick gaming skills of mashing buttons. While a kid is posing with Kratos/Dalsim, it's revealed that Vrock is here, undisguised, and people think it's a costume. Obviously, it's a reference to the Mighty Morphin episode, Life's a Masquerade, in which Alpha 5 goes to a Halloween party at the Juice Center and becomes the life of the party. Meanwhile, Bulk and Skull dress like Elvis, and Tommy gets confused for Frankenstein's monster. God damn it, I'm doing it again. Vrock notes that while humans aren't as powerful, their reflexes and their hands are very impressive. Jake finds Vrock and goes to hide and morph. He wants to make sure the audience doesn't know this is real. People out there think this is a floor show. Vrock takes a rock rush attack straight from Jake, and he retreats to form a plan. Vrock reveals to Malcor and Creepox that his plan was to go to Earth to study humans for their hand-eye coordination. That a human being might be able to operate his new robot, Zombitar. Malcor points out how ridiculous this idea is to give a weapon of mass destruction to a human, but Vrock says that their fingers are quick, but their minds are weak. The right human would attack whoever we like, if they thought it was a part of the game. Jake tells the others about the attack, and they plan to meet up at the convention center. Noah hears, but decides to go tell Mr. Burley he's leaving first. But Mr. Burley is a gaming god. He wins every game he is thrown into without even knowing what the game is. Bow before Mr. Burley, bask in his gaming glory. Vrock pulls Mr. Burley aside and pretends to be a video game executive who wants to have Mr. Burley test out his new game. He tries to coax him into playing, but keeps saying things an evil alien would say, which would be dead giveaway to anybody who's not a Power Rangers character. The game is that he controls Zombitar and must destroy the Power Rangers. Mr. Burley notes that the arena looks like the convention center. Vrock says that, in all things we strive for realism. Are you sure Vrock's not really a video game executive? I'm sure Andrew Wilson or Bobby Kotick would do the same thing if it meant they made more money. Mr. Burley somehow is actually convinced by all of this, and he grabs a controller. The Rangers show up next to Pink Chun-Li and doubt Vrock is actually here, until Zombitar busts on the show floor. The Rangers get to action and actually start attacking the thing. The robot stumbles, and Vrock backseat games Mr. Burley, noting how it seems like he's just pushing buttons at random, and Mr. Burley mentioning how it worked for him before, so clearly Mr. Burley is a UMVC-3 main. Mr. Burley has it accidentally blast its own foot, and the Rangers are convinced that this is so easy this is actually a diversion for some other plan. Vrock tells him to use a combo and asks, "Let's see what the Rangers do against this." Mr. Burley asks to clarify that these are fake rangers in the game, right? To which Vrock says, yes, of course. Zombitar launches ranger-colored homing shots.
Like a homing shot.
Troy realizes they can use this to their advantage, and so they each try to take out a different color missile than their own, as it's only going after their color. Which is clearly a reference to the Psycho Ranger saga of Power Rangers in Space, where the Psycho Rangers are obsessed with fighting their ranger of their respective color, and the Space Rangers have to use that to their advantage to pick them off one at a time until they're down to the last three who mutate and grow giant. I'm sorry. I'll stop. Mr. Burley starts to smell some bullshit, while Vrock tries to keep him gaming. Zombitar launches even more attacks, and the Rangers use the Mega Blaster on it. It blasts Zombitar through a wall, and Vrock tells the human fool to get up, to which Mr. Burley tells him to stop screaming at him over a video game. Outside, the Rangers summon their individual Zords, and it's got Zombitar clearly outmatched. Vrock sends in a new creature, Thistle, to help Zombitar. The individual Zords attack Thistle. Mr. Burley tries to run away, and Vrock scolds him, telling him that Thistle is here to help, not to do it solo. Mr. Burley asks, "Are you supposed to give me this much help?" Vrock bonks him on the head, and that causes a flurry of random attacks. Noah recognizes that strategy as the same one Mr. Burley uses it, and realizes it must be him operating the robot somehow? Noah uses the Shark Zord's laser eyes that I guess it's always had to write a message in the wall for Mr. Burley to read. Mr. Burley, help the Rangers. Mr. Burley assumes this is the game over-tutorializing him, and he decides to switch sides. Zombitar goes after Thistle, and Vrock and Mr. Burley get into a fight over the controller like Vrock's mom just told him it was his turn to use the Xbox. The Rangers destroy Thistle and have no idea what to do with Zombitar. Vrock sends his Zombats for Thistle, and the Rangers summon the Gosei Great Megazord. Vrock tells him to give him the controller or he will destroy Mr. Burley, but Mr. Burley, being an absolute giga-chad, tells Vrock, "Don't let that costume go to your head, fellow. This controller is mine. I'm going to win this game no matter what, or my name isn't Burley." Zombitar grabs Thistle's leg, and that gives the Rangers a chance to use the Victory Charge Mega Strike. Vrock tells Mr. Burley that he's made an enemy today, and Mr. Burley brushes it off. "As if I would worry about some corporate executives who builds things out of cheap plastic." And then the controller shatters in his hands. Mr. Burley thinks the fight was real, but Noah, as the Blue Ranger, tells him that the fight was just similar to the game, and that it's a psychic phenomenon, a paranormal coincidence. Mr. Burley thinks he's psychic now, and thanks the Power Rangers. The girl comes back with the trophy to give to Mr. Burley, but he wonders if he should do the right thing and give it to the Rangers. They say, "That's perfectly alright," and Troy thinks that Mr. Burley was the one who saved the convention center, with a little help. On the next page is a write-up on the editor-in-chief of Paper Cuts, Jim Salicrup. That's cute. I gotta say, I like the art style of the comic. Gosei looks like Aku Aku from Crash Bandicoot, and Emma in particular has some very cute faces. And Vrock got me acting up for some Insectussy. The Ranger suits look good and really well done and on model, for the most part. Overall, I'd say this first issue isn't bad, it's just really generic. The characters are really flanderized, even by the standards of Megaforce, and nothing really interesting happens, despite the premise. There's some cool art, and there's some funny bits in the second story, but the comic feels afraid to commit to any interesting ideas, and falls back on generic action. I knew this wasn't a retelling of the show, so I wasn't expecting an origin story, but I was at least hoping for something a little more original.
Well, that one wasn't too bad, but this next one, especially being the last comic in the line, is probably going to be something epic. And check out this cover, by the way. Broken World? I bet this is going to be the best comic that we've seen so far. Let's dig right on into it.
Let me just say this to start. This issue is a lot more action-focused than the previous issues have been. It also has a lot more expository dialogue than we've seen prior. So, despite this story taking up double the amount of pages as the previous two stories, there isn't as much to talk about narratively. To keep this interesting, I've decided to do a few things to spice up the recap a little. With that out of the way, we open up to Noah feeling nervous about asking out a girl at school. Jake tells Noah that he shouldn't be afraid, what with all the monsters that they've fought. But with even his comic counterpart being a simp, Jake wants Noah to ask her out so that he will know what to say when he tries to ask out Gia. Taking advice from a man petrified to talk to girls is some 4D chess right there. Noah goes to talk to her. He invites her to go see the new particle collider exhibit. She's confused, to which he hyperfixates on it in excessive detail. She has no idea how to respond, and Noah just bolts out of there. He finds Robo Knight on top of the roof, and the narrator reiterates how Robo Knight's memory has been damaged in the hibernation, and how now he sometimes sees humans as the greatest threat to the planet, and, at times, he may be right.
Has this comic tried to shame the readers for being humans? Does the author of the comic, Stefan Petruccia, secretly hate humans?
Moving away from whatever that was implicating, we get this genuinely really funny moment between Noah and Robo Knight.
It's hard defending the planet, I know, but I've got different problems today. I mean, I don't like to brag, but I'm pretty smart. In class, I can explain practically anything. Chemistry, physics, computers. So why did I just make a complete fool of myself in front of a girl I really like? How can math be so easy, but this so hard? Why can't I get myself together? Do I come on too strong? Is it me? It just feels like my life is draining through my hands and I can't hold on. I mean, am I better at talking to machines than people?
After Noah unloads all that onto Robo Knight, he flies off. Noah thinks he offended Robo Knight, but he actually was just leaping into action to go track down the newest monster. The others meet up with Noah morphed up at the particle collider? That's what a particle collider is? I thought he was asking her to go to the museum or something. Dude, who asks a girl to go to the desert to look at a giant military base as a first date? Robo Knight is standing by, ready to fight in case something happens. The Rangers enter the building and speak to the employees, who reassure the Rangers that everything is safe and fine. Noah explains to the scientists, but more importantly, the audience, that two things can go wrong with this. The first being radiation emitting from the collider. They brush this off with them mentioning a new water cooling system, but when Noah mentions the collider can produce what's referred to as a stranglet, it would basically act like an infection across the entire world. Jake has no idea what they're talking about. Troy also has no idea what they're talking about, but he has a feeling at least that something is going on here. He begs the scientists to please just make sure they don't turn on the machine until after the Rangers are done investigating.
Of course.
Though I doubt you'll find anything. This place is as secure as Fort Knox.
What's that sound?
The accelerator. It's been activated.
The Rangers are now abruptly fighting some loogies outside, while Robo Knight's watching them from afar. We cut to the insectoids where Malcor is talking with Lieutenant Creepox? So we've got a story with Robo Knight and Creepox. I'd be more confused by this, but that video game story already completely broke me. Moving on, Creepox releases a monster named Radiant onto the base, who's some kind of giant grasshopper monster. He, in his own words, is powered by and releases radiation.
Well, that's it. Story over right there. A monster who shoots radiation at you? That guy can give you a disease before he lands a punch. That's it. Pack it up. It's all over. All hail our insect overlords.
Vrock is back on his speciesism again, talking about how superior insects are for being immune to radiation. Creepox says that Vrock is jealous, which Vrock really can't argue with. Robo Knight finally leaps into battle, the Rangers thinking he's here to help. Or not.
Wow! He must really hate that building!
No! Even if Robo Knight knows something is going on, he might accidentally hurt those scientists! We have to protect them first! Robo Knight, no! The particle collider is not the problem!
So, Robo Knight does the same thing he did in Prince Takes Night, and goes off on his own mission, not caring about human life or the casualties that may be caused. Noah says it's because Robo Knight's memory is still damaged. But is that why he considers the building itself to be the enemy? After the Rangers get the civilians out, Radiant crashes their party. The Rangers summon their weapons. They manage to destroy Radiant, so the threat of radiation and poisoning was really a non-factor in this story. Noah realizes that Robo Knight only attacked the building because he was able to detect that the collider produced the aforementioned stranglet. Now, a tear in the fabric of reality is happening? While that's going on, Radiant enlarges.
Tiger Zord!
Shark Zord! Dragon Zord! Snake Zord!
Phoenix Zord!
The Rangers engage their individual Zords. Noah suggests forming the Gosei Great Megazord, but then Noah says no, and breaks off to go stop the other Stranglets, while the other four try to hold off Radian. Wait, what? Okay, I don't even know how you make a mistake like this, when the other speech bubble is literally in the same panel as this one. Did Noah just space out and only realize he messed up after the fact? Noah has to travel undersea in his Shark Zord to stop the Stranglet. It's cool to see the Zords used like this, and this is the benefit of a comic book not being limited to physical suits, CGI, stock footage, any of that stuff. You can tell your own stories however you want. The Shark can blast the Stranglet, but it's not strong enough to stop it permanently. Noah goes to ask Robo Knight to help him, as his Zord is strong enough, but Noah's words don't seem to faze him.
Why can't I find the right words? It's like talking to Danny again, only much worse.
Jesus, Noah, now is not the time to be a simp. Anyway, Noah tried to explain it like a pool with a plug being pulled out, and I guess Robo Knight's mother was a pool as well, because Robo Knight leaps into action after hearing that. Noah believes he's gotten through to him. Before having time to even establish a plan, though, Robo Knight dives headfirst into the water. Robo Knight tries to stop a tear in the fabric of reality by slicing it with his sword. Surprisingly, given this is Power Ranger science we're talking about, this actually backfires, and Robo Knight starts getting pulled into it. While that was going on, Radian had disabled the other Zords. However, they've managed to recharge and are finally able to defeat Radian. Noah bails Robo Knight out at the last second, and the two manage to close the gap, but a stray blast heads towards Noah. Robo Knight deflects it, and while the villains are celebrating a job well done and arguing over who deserves a promotion the most, which, given this is Malcor, they're probably all getting a promotion and a 2-week vacation, the blast hits them and tears into their ship. Noah joins up with the others. They ask where Robo Knight is, and Noah is unsure if he survived, due to how powerful the blast was. But then Robo Knight emerges atop the building, not a scratch on him.
What do we do if he tries to destroy the Collider again? Fight him?
Phew. I hope that's a question we never have to answer, Emma.
Why introduce such a serious real-world conflict if you aren't going to offer any solution to it? I know Power Rangers is a series for kids, but don't introduce concepts you aren't willing to explain, Megaforce! Everyone congratulates Noah for being able to get through to Robo Knight. He says it's more evidence that he just doesn't understand people, but Emma says that it's more like he's found the human in Robo Knight. The next day at school.
Dude, there's Danny. You know what to do?
I know exactly what to do. I'm going to lower my head and hope she doesn't see me sneaking by.
Hi, Noah.
Oh.
I finally figured out what you were talking about the other day. I'd love to see the particle collider thing with you.
How about a movie instead?
Better yet.
I guess if I could communicate with Robo Knight, finding something in common with a real human like Danny should be easy.
The art is nice. Honestly, I would love more Power Rangers comics drawn in this style. The fights are decently done as well, but these are nothing burger stories. Considering they only had 2 issues, I wish they gave everyone equal focus. It's not like they didn't know this was the end as well. The back of this issue has an advertisement for their Mighty Morphin Power Rangers comics coming next year, so this was their final chance to tell the story they wanted to tell. It felt like it was trying to be epic and earth-shattering. But you can't keep raising the stakes without having anything interesting for your characters to do. 2 out of 3 of these comics start with 3 of our Rangers in the woods doing their own thing and then being called to action. If the series becomes too reliant on fighting and action, then there is no room for character, which is the benefit of the medium of comic books. It really feels like they had a good idea of what elements to pull from to get the most out of these characters. We get a lot of unique combinations, like we get to see Mr. Burley interacting with the cast, which we don't get a whole lot of in the main show itself, and we get to see Vrock interacting with other characters, which he doesn't really get to do being a suited villain. That kind of limits his potential, but the comic allowed him to do a whole lot more.
These comics are pretty pointless. Noah and Emma get the bulk of the stories, Jake gets some comic relief, Troy has no personality, and Gia doesn't get any character development. Can you believe it? These are mild novelties, but they're not going to satiate your appetite for more Megaforce. Speaking of appetite, I am actually getting pretty hungry. Nick!
Yeah?
Dude, I've been here forever. Can I please get something to eat?
I think I can arrange that.
Ah, sweet! McDonald's! Wait. So here's your view of the Power Rangers McDonald's Happy Meal Megazord. So you get one of each of the Zords, all 6 of them for each Ranger, including Robo Knight, who's not even in the regular Megazord combination. I don't know what the fuck he's doing here. Fanny pack. So each of them has 1 or 2 points of articulation. They got a little point back here. And they also have a launching feature. So you can shoot off like that, launch your snake off. And then, at least for this one, you use that port and flip it around there, and that gets you your leg. Same thing with Gia. Launch that, put that here. Then you take your Robo fanny pack, you take these 2. These ports are awful, by the way. The absolute worst. What kind of McDonald's is running this where they can't have solid ports for a Megazord? I got half the dude. What are you gonna do with the rest of them? You're gonna take Troy, bring him here. Oh yeah, go Spyro. Go Spyro, look at them go! Oh yeah. Gonna slot him in here. And the wings attached, who gives a shit? Now, these ones have the worst fucking ports. The Phoenix and the Shark. Got their little pee holes over here. Click that in. Oh, let's get some Jaws 3D action coming here. Then you're gonna do this with this fucker. See what I said? Name a 3-year-old who can pull one of these out. I'm an adult and I don't even have fingernails. How the hell is a 3-year-old gonna pull that port out? Oh yeah, now check this out. Got time. Yeah! Now we got a Megazord. Look at this gallant creature, this front to God. Look at him go! You know, to be fair, he's got more articulation than most Megazords, so honestly, this might be one of the best ones. There's your Megazord review. 10 out of 10, this is the best Megazord ever invented. They obviously wanted to copy the Jungle Fury Megazord with its spinning feature. Alright, that's it. I have to get out of here.
What are you gonna do, go back and watch more Megaforce?
Huh?
Never mind. Anyway, if you can beat me in the game, I'll make time go faster for you.
You sure? What kind of game? You don't mean...
No. A card game.
The Megaforce card game? I don't even know the rules. I haven't even played this game before.
Well, luckily you have plenty of time to figure it out. If you need me, I'll be in the break room.
Alright, let's figure this out. I gotta get out of here. This is hopeless. I have no idea what I'm doing. Wait, he said I have to watch Power Rangers content, but he didn't say where I have to watch the Power Rangers content. Look, I'm sure somebody's done a guide on YouTube before on how to play this game. Let me take a look and see. Alright, there we go. Let's hope this helps.
Cards. These are a gimmick that have appeared numerous times throughout the toy lines of tokusatsu shows, but it wasn't until 2013 where Power Rangers implemented them in full force. Cards have been made for Power Rangers in the past, even back to the Mighty Morphin days, but with Power Rangers Megaforce, the cards were everywhere. In the show, they were used to summon everything in the Rangers' arsenal, from weapons, to Zords, to even their attacks. And to reflect that, Bandai America included them in nearly every single toy released for the show in 2013. The centerpiece of this toy line was the deluxe Gosei Morpher. This item included 10 cards to get your collection started, and to showcase the features of the Morpher. Half the cards were Megaforce based, and included a Change, Weapon, Zord, Megazord, and Attack card, with the rest being cards of legendary Red Rangers in celebration of the 20th anniversary of the franchise, including Wild Force, Ninja Storm, SPD, Mystic Force, and Jungle Fury. While most of the Megaforce cards included generic sounds, the legendary cards were able to be recognized by the Morpher by both season name and ranger color. A feature like this was something that mixed the card gimmick given to Megaforce by the Gosager footage, along with being a great way to see the franchise's anniversary being used to expand the cards to their full extent. Though one can only wonder how cool it would have been to see these cards being used in the show to turn into past Rangers. The Gosei Morpher toy featured 3 modes that could be switched between with the control on the back. First was Demo Mode, which was the default when the Morpher was sitting on the shelves in the store, where every card used in this mode would activate the sound, Go Go Megaforce. Then of course was the main On mode, in which the full card reader was active for the nearly 180 sounds present inside. To unlock these, that's where the action card game came in. Where there's cards, there's starter decks and booster packs to follow. Launched around the premiere of Megaforce in the spring of 2013, was Series 1 of the Power Rangers ACG, Rise of Heroes. Featuring characters from Power Rangers Megaforce, Samurai, Super Samurai, RPM, and Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, this was the main way that the sounds in the Gosei Morpher were unlocked. The Series 1 starter deck included 40 cards for Power Rangers Megaforce and Samurai, with 10 of them being duplicates of the main 5 members of each team to give a friend a way to start their own deck. Also included in the deck was the game manual for version 1 of the game, the game mat, and dice. While this starter deck always included the same cards, the booster packs did not. These were sold with 10 random cards in each pack, though it was a guarantee to get a number of the different types present in each set, with there being commons and rares, designated by the symbol in the corner of the card, and each pack included one special card in the back that was either a silver foil super rare or a gold foil ultra rare card. This introduced the different types of playable cards as well: Rangers, Villains, Zords, and Megazords, each with their own purpose to the actual card game. Using the game mat from the starter deck and a number of Series 1 and early promo cards, here's how the game was played. The first step is to build a deck. The official rules stated in the manual showed that a deck of 30 cards with no more than 3 copies of a particular card is needed to play. Villain decks can also be created with the same rules, but these decks must only contain villain cards and not be mixed with other card types. After shuffling up the cards, players shake hands and draw 5 cards from their decks to start. The goal of the game is to leave your opponent with 0 cards in their deck area. If this happens to both players, it's a tie. Now each card has a number of important pieces of info on them. The side barcode is used for the Gosei Morpher to make a sound. The top barcode is used for the action card game app, which we'll get to shortly. The other side includes a group of power levels, which will also be important, and then below the art and name of the card is a number of important pieces of information, including special effects, damages, abilities, and costs that all factor into the turns. Each turn goes like this. Start. Each player draws 2 cards from their decks. Summon. You play a ranger, villain, or support card from your hand into the battle area at the same time as the other player, or choose not to play a card. If a card is played, that player must pay the cost present on the card. For example, with a card of a damage of 1, then 1 card from their hand must be moved to the discard area of the mat, or grabbed from the training area of the mat if a card is present there. Extra Summon. Next, a player may choose to play a more powerful Zord or Megazord card on top of the card already in the battle area, though you don't have to. And just as in the last step, if a card is played here, the player takes the damage associated with that card. The final step in each turn is Battle. Now it's time to fight. The outcome here depends on what scenario is ongoing. If only one player has a card in the battle area, then the damage indicated on said card is inflicted on the opponent. However, this damage is applied a second time to the opponent as a result of them not playing a card. However, in most cases there are cards in play from both players, so a judgment must occur. This is achieved by one of 3 possible methods, whichever one that the players want, to determine the power level present on the cards that will be compared. Method 1 is using the included dice ranging from 1 to 6 that matches up to the power levels on the card. Method 2 is with the deluxe Gosei Morpher toy. This is where the final mode of that toy comes in. When switched to TCG mode on the back and a card is placed in, Gosei will say a random power level, which is then what is used to decide the outcome of the match. Using the Gosei Morpher can also activate special effects of the cards that the dice option cannot. These are present on the bottom of the game map and also in the game manual, but don't come into effect with the dice or the next method. Method 3 is the Action Card Game app. This was used as part of the marketing strategy by Bandai America for the game that ranged from the website for the toys to this app, which allowed for each card to be scanned in a short animated clip or a clip from the show to be played after each one. This app had a game mode as well that would read a power level after the clip for the purposes of judgment. Once the judgment has been decided by one of these methods and we have power levels to compare, there is a chance to turn the results with an assist. An assist can only be implemented using cards in the player's training area. So if there are cards there, a player may use as many as they wish to add to the assist value of the card in play. So if a judgment determines that a card is playing at power level 2, but cards with an assist value of 3 are implemented, then the card will now play at power level 5. If each player has more than one assist card that can be played, the one with the lower power level from the judgment gets to decide to play an assist or not first. Now, it's the showdown. With the power levels of each card finalized, the one with the higher level will win the battle. If a power level is max, the card wins automatically, unless the other player's is also a max. If there's a tie, then both players must reperform a judgment method and assist opportunity until there's a winner of the match. The final move of a round is to deal damage to the loser. Here, the damage the opponent will take is indicated on the winner's card, which is then implemented. At this point, the chance for extra damage must also be checked. This is accomplished with the rock, paper, scissors symbol in the corner of every card. If the winner of the battle also wins rock, paper, scissors, then damage is dealt to the loser a second time. But this only happens if the winner is the same in both competitions. Nothing occurs if the winner of the battle loses or ties rock, paper, scissors. From here, steps 1 through 4 are repeated in multiple rounds until a player runs out of cards in their deck. These are the basic rules for playing the Power Rangers action card game, but there are a number of ability symbols and other rules that can come into play that changes up the flow of these steps a little bit. As the toy line expanded, so did the options for cards to be added to decks as well, as opportunities for fans to add their favorite Rangers, villains, and Zords from the franchise to their collections and the game. Series 2 of the action card game, Guardians of Justice, introduced In Space, Lightspeed Rescue, Ninja Storm, SPD, and Mystic Force as options for seasons, as well as some of the first support cards to be released for the line. While the card game would go on to last for only 4 series in the US and 5 in Europe, this led to a wide collection of cards from every season of Power Rangers at the time that could be put up against each other in the card game, used in the app, used in the Gosei Morpher, and of course collected for their wider range of artwork taken from cards from Japan or photoshopped together from screenshots just for these cards. Ever since then, Bandai has never really attempted cards in either Sentai or Power Rangers ever again, but it's an idea that definitely had potential back then and still can today. Let me know down in the comments below, did you play or collect the Power Rangers action card game during Megaforce? Or was it never really your thing? Be sure to follow me on Twitter at LivingRangerKey or AtlanticPR, and I'll see you all next time.
Sweet. I think I got it now. Nah!
God, dude, why are you shouting? I'm still in the building.
Sorry, but I think I got it now. Are you ready to play?
Let's do this. Yes! Well played, Dan.
Yes! Did.
You played a good hand, Dan.
So, how much time are you going to shave off?
Oh, not shaving off any amount of time. You still have to wait the same.
What?
You see, I literally told you I would make time go by faster for you. Maybe you spend less time watching Power Rangers and go touch some grass. Okay, not the time for jokes, but just give my idea a chance. I think you're gonna like it.
So, what's your idea?
Just go sit on the couch and turn on the TV.
Okay. Alright. What do I got to lose at this point?